nursing, and I have been on the CHSP team, what, 5, 6 years, I think. Oh, you're muted, Pat. 5, okay. I've been on the
5 or 6, probably about 5 or 6 at least. Okay.
All right.
Next person, Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency, and this is my 6th or 7th year on the review team.
Ms. Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ryan Meadows, and I am with Florida Virtual School. I think this is my 2nd or 3rd year. Can't remember. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Ryan, you should be very busy these days. Virtual school has a new meeting. I tell you what.
It does.
I was thinking, I'm so glad I don't have small children right now. My life would be more complicated.
Rub it in.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, I know, because I'm trying to get mine ready for VBK, and I'm like, why?
Very challenging. It's a whole new world, and it was pretty complicated to me when I had babies. So let's go with now our other lady, Miss Marie.
Hi everyone, my name is Marie Bryant. I work for Whole Child Leon, and I actually been on the CHSP now for I think almost, this might be my 3rd year. What else I was supposed to say, Pat?
That's it. I think what's critical about her too on her team, she actually lives and breathes Southside and the Promise Zone, and that's why we have her. Hopefully Renee will get here because we actually included 2 experts from the community on this team. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and have Mr. Ubi please introduce himself.
Ubi Brantley, work with the state of Florida, particularly the Department of Management Services, and I have been with CHSP for 3 years.
Welcome back, and I think last but not least is Mr. James.
Probably least, but James Madura Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I'm the rookie on the team, so I'm gonna be leaning on you all heavily to learn a lot during this process, but I'm happy to be a member and look forward to working with you all.
Can you tell them how many years of grant experience you have in general, approximately how many years?
Actually, I have about 15 years of grant experience. I've worked with the Virgin Islands Legislature.
That's it.
I've worked with the state. So I've worked between all basically government entities. So I have a lot of grant experience, but not as much experience as you all. So as far as working with the Promise Zone, but I'm here and willing to learn. Thanks.
Thank you, James. And so when you do your introduction, just kind of, and we'll talk about the format of the days will go, you will introduce yourself. First, the team leader will start it out, introduce herself, name, organization, how many years you've been in CHSP, grant reviewer. And then the rest of the members will introduce themselves. The last person to introduce herself will be Crystal. Crystal, as the timekeeper, she'll, and I'm okay, since it's only, each agency were given up to 5 representatives to participate in this meeting. So what we've been doing, it's worked pretty well as far as timing. So Crystal, once you introduce yourself, you will say that you will tell them they have 20 minutes for the Q&A session. You're going to also ask them to make sure when they respond to questions that they are succinct and quick, meaning that we only have a limited time. So if you need to move them because they've been on this response too long, you have to do that. But anyway, kind of give them some parameters of the day, what they can expect. But then you can say, first of all, we're going to allow you to introduce the members on your team just by name and the role that they function in that organization. That's it. No presentation, nothing. Just that's it. Your name and your role in the organization. Okay. And then once they do that, the 20 minutes will start. You will give them a 5-minute, you will give all of us, your team members included, You're going to have to do verbal because some people don't have the other, some people are going to only be maybe joining us by telephone. Renee, you did it, Renee. I'm proud of you. There we are. All of our team members are visual. I love it. And so we will, so basically, so allow them to introduce themselves, and then you'll move on. You'll move right on into the QA. The first question, Madam Chairperson, you will direct to them. Once Crystal has done her part, you will direct them to answer the specific question regarding the impact of the COVID-19 virus on their program. Most importantly, the ability to implement and perform that program, and how has it impacted the clients that they serve, the services and activities that the program has, and how has it affected the budget of the agency. So making sure, but here's the deal. If they should only have to spend 5 minutes on this, responding to this question at the most. If they go beyond that, Crystal, you will have to stop them, okay? So Marilyn, when you think about the dance that you and Crystal will perform today, you're gonna be mainly kind of watching the members, the committee members, making sure you manage their questions, making sure that people ask the most, make sure with the time you have, ask the most meaningful questions first. You may have it would be a nice and no question. Don't go there. Let your team members, and we need to rotate so all the team members ask the most significant questions that pertain directly to your decision about who gets funded this year, okay? We already know for a fact, statistically, that the communities that you will serve, you've noticed they've expanded the Promise Zone. The Promise Zone, I asked you to read that section prior to today. So the Promise Zone is a unique system because we already have 9 other funding categories for programs to serve on, okay, to get funded on. So you're looking at funding the most fundamental, important programs to the Promise Zone. You cannot duplicate unless you don't put 2 programs in the same community, like South City, for example, and then lead kids on Orange Avenue or in other parts of the Joe Louis with nothing, okay? So you've got a limited amount of money to make some big decisions. And we know for a fact that, as we know, we're the poverty rate, the prior poverty rate of the Promise Zone, it originally encompassed 30,000, now it encompasses 60,000 people, but the overall poverty rate was over 50%, okay? So this is a serious, we're talking about people in our communities who live in neighborhoods that have the highest risk socioeconomic variables in this whole town. And that's why the designation of Promise Zone means that you are affected much more heavily by crime, poverty, lack of home ownership, substandardized housing, gang activity, and just low performing schools, low resources. And so these are the neighbors who have to struggle to eat day to day. And so the decisions that you guys will make on this team are going to be critical, because you guys are about to determine what services are available to the highest risk population in our community for the next 2 years. We also know that they're hit much more heavily by the COVID-19 virus because of again, social economic risk factors, including lack of accessibility to healthcare or lack of quality healthcare. And therefore, and lack of quality foods, we know, can lead to a lot of other medical conditions. So therefore, you're dealing with some of the most oppressed communities. So I hope you guys will take this day very seriously. We need you to be very engaging, asking questions. They need you to be interactive. So let's not have a lot of dead silence during the 20 minutes because it makes people feel like you have not bothered to even read their applications. And that is we have to show respect to our all the organizations who are working in the community, who have been fighting to put services in our community. I think we have do we have someone from our agency, Virginia?
Already working on it.
Okay, thank you, dear. We have a waiting room, a virtual waiting room. Okay. So I kind of said a mouthful. Let's see if I want to make sure I got the most critical. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have anything? Do I need to have something that has the time on it that lets them know that they have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute? You're on mute.
Oh, I mean, you can do that, or you can, I would just say, because you're going to do that 5 minute, I would say 5 minute, and then you might want to say 1 minute and then just shut it down. You're going to, I mean, the reality is you could do that sheet if you want to, but some people won't be able to see you, Crystal.
What about, so are we giving, is it still 30 minutes for review, 10 minutes for budget?
No. Let me, this schedule here, let me be clear. We had to condense this process. So what you see, James, this is not our normal process. Of course, we went virtual. Agencies were given an additional month to complete their applications. So therefore, we're starting much more later because we wanted to give them additional time because of COVID-19 impact on the agency, give them additional time to basically prepare the app. Short story, we've condensed the HSP and changed this flavor. No, we normally, in the past, they had 30 minutes to present their program, 10 minutes to present their budget, and 20 minutes for questions and answer, period. We have eliminated all presentation. We've narrowed this down. The only thing that they will be doing today is responding to your questions and answers. So now you understand why the 20 minutes is so serious, okay?
So I'm giving them 5 minutes to respond to the COVID and how it's impacted, and then 20 minutes for questions and answers.
No, 15.
20 minutes total.
Yes.
Damn.
20 minutes total. I mean, they don't have to, and we don't necessarily, if they don't necessarily need 5 minutes unless they got some substantive to say. So we're not trying to say, that you got to have 5 minutes, but we don't, what I'm saying, and when we managing the time, that's about as much time as we can afford for them to spend on that. And and from the gate and watching this whole process, that's all they need. Because we're not trying to say we're not, like, for example, if they have to do mask or something like that, that they're requiring that there's a mask, that the person wears a mask every time they interact with a client, or we don't want to know how many clients there, we don't want to know the small details of it, just that this is a global response that they're doing across the board within their agency itself. Any questions? With Promise-Zone, here's the deal with Promise-Zone. I want you to be very astute too. There was some expectation that we may have a lot of money, extra money in Promise-Zone. That did not come to fruition. We the county added an additional $145,000 to Promise-Zone. Otherwise, it's the same funding that we've always had. So some people I'm gonna be honest with you, grant writing is part of grant writing world. You go and shop, right? It's up to the reviewers to make good decisions. People have a right to apply to Promise-Zone, but you also have the responsibility to make sure that these are true programs targeting the Promise-Zone, meaning that if we're already funding this program on another team, we don't need to double fund that program. The only way we want to fund a program that's for example, on a different team, is that they've expanded the service delivery and they've designed a program specific to the needs of the Promise-Zone, right? So they have to show an expansion of service to the Promise-Zone community, and they have to demonstrate a new innovative program, okay? But not a typical program that we could fund on any other team. So you've got to be discerning about what's a real Promise Zone program, or is someone just shopping for additional money to add from one, so they can have money off of 2 different teams for CHSP. Because we want to find substance and programs that really are targeting Promise Zone. What we have found from a cultural perspective, this is a different, you can't have a one shoe fits all and try to go and serve culturally different kinds of communities that have issues that affect them in a way most of us, I know my kids have, they only understand it from the TV, okay? They never lived this. And some people, and you know, some of us have never lived this, but it's a different world. I mean, it's a different world. If you go out, you walk out your door, your kid walks out that door, walks a couple of steps, and there's a drug dealer meeting that child. Hey, you want to try some crack? You want to try some drugs right now? That there is variables in communities that suburban communities don't necessarily have to embrace, you know. But if you live in public housing or you live in other communities where you just and let's face it, remember whenever I train you guys, I talk to you about how even with you know, you'll find in the communities that have substandard housing, they also let anybody in. So you can, while your neighborhood, they may be screening, they screen out people, right? So that you may not have as many necessarily sometimes perpetrators in your neighborhood as someone else who, if substandard housing, whoever pays can get in that community. So there are more risk factors in that community naturally to children and people who live there. So we just, you know, we got to be, so we want programs that are culturally competent is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I know I talked a lot. Any comments? Because
we're rolling some agencies, so I'll talk really fast so that way we can get this next part done. So I don't know if y'all have already changed your layout, but if you go towards the top right hand side of the screen, you'll see sorry, let me minimize all my stuff. So you'll see underneath your connected bar, there are 2 white circles. If you click on the one to the left, you have 3 options. If you could please click on the one that has the 4 dots as grid view. As soon as you select it, you'll see the difference. Yep. Okay, everybody's shaking their head. Awesome. Okay, so then next, if you kind of scroll, and if you know this next part, please just ignore me. If you scroll towards the bottom of the WebEx program, you'll see a bunch of circles pop up. This is just letting y'all know so that way we can work at this as smooth as possible. So the first one is mute. For everybody that's muted right now, you'll see that your button is full red. If it's gray, you are not muted. Just try again, because feedback is going to be crazy on here. If I see you're muted and you're talking, I'll unmute you. We might get into mute wars. I'm sorry if you're trying to unmute yourself and I'm trying to unmute you as well, but we'll go ahead and we'll get that going. The next one is your video. So it is being recorded, but when we go between breaks of agencies and we go on lunch break, can you please, you won't be recorded at that point. So I ask that you leave the program on if possible. We'll keep running, but just turn your camera off and mute yourself. I do have access to mute, but I cannot turn your camera off. The next one you all should have is a person with 3 lines. That's a participant pan. I keep that open, so please be patient with me throughout the day as I move the agencies in and out the room. And then also that's how I track feedback. So that's pretty much too. If you're having a lot of feedback on your end, you'll see the blue lines like with me right now speaking. The next one y'all will have is a chat bubble. If you're a texter, this is very familiar to you. Just be careful. It's automatically going to go to everyone. So if there's an agency in the room, they'll get that as well while they're signed in. So we usually use that if there's feedback, if there's technical issues, or you need me to call you, help you do something behind the scenes. The next button will, I won't take up too much time on that. But
hey, Virginia, 1 second. Isn't there a drop down so they can select whom they send it? Yeah, so you could send it to the person.
But you can select, it'll have host, it'll have presenter, and it'll have everyone else's name. So you can do that. But again, be careful, because if an agency is in the room, hold on. If an agency is in the room, they will get it at that point. So the next button, WebEx says, and see, I'm already late, I'm sorry. So there's a lot of bandwidth issues. So if you're having bandwidth issues, I'll try to help you off the scenes. about 5 minutes prior to an agency starting Q&A. I'll try to get them moved into the room so we can give them technical assistance if they need it. And without further ado, I'm sorry to take up so much time. We're running late, so I'll go ahead and get, I think it's Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I'll go ahead and get them in the room. So, oh, I got you, Ryan.
I just had a quick question. If we need to use the restroom, do we let Virginia or you, Pat, know, or?
We're actually gonna take a breaks every 20 minutes between the agencies. We're gonna have a bathroom break between every agency. But if you had to go, what I would suggest you do is just hit your mute, hit your stereo, and then go. You don't need to announce anything so that we don't disrupt the presentations. Make sure, Chris, I don't know, I'm gonna make you the bearer. Just make sure that you're looking at last year's award letter to see if there's any problems or concern that was identified in the award letters from, this is a new program agency, so you don't have an award letter. So we'll talk about that after this, Crystal, okay?
Because I couldn't find theirs.
Yeah, there is none for them. The other thing is that make sure that you ask them fiscally what are the most critical needs that they have fiscally. With that, let's start. I'll be silent during the process. I will only interfere if it's parliamentary that I have to, because I see something going on. Because I'm the equity queen in a way, making sure we treat everyone in an equal, equitable, fair manner. So sometimes I may stop people if they're going too long because we need to make, but I think what's most important is that you ask the tough questions that you need in a respectful way, but you got to have information to make good decisions, right? And with that, you will be the, Dr. McGee, you are the point person as far as starting the meeting, okay? And we will go ahead and wait on our visitors, okay, our guests.
All right.
Dr. McGee, you got the COVID thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
what agency are you with?
I'm with Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Big Bend.
Okay, so I have Alva, Brian, I have more people. Where'd they go? Mary Rose and Samantha Vance, all for Big Brothers Big Sisters?
No, just Mary Rose, Brian, and Alva.
Okay, so Samantha needs to go. All right. Sorry, I don't have everybody's name on all of them.
That's
and then
okay.
is this everybody for your agency?
Yes, it is, and I apologize. Yes, so yeah, Brian would be the incoming chair, and Mary Rose is the outgoing chair of the board.
Perfect. All right, Dr. Marilyn, lock in the room, and there you are.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start with introductions, and I'll introduce myself first. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been on the Citizens Review team for about 5 years. At this time, I'm going to pass it along to Marie, and she can introduce herself.
Unmute yourself, Marie, and start over.
Oh my God.
There you go, Marie. Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Marie Bryan. I work at Whole Child Leon. I'm a Southside resident. I've been on the South Side for maybe almost 56, 57 years. Also, I'm a very advocate in the community. I'm the South City Neighborhood President, Association President. Thank you. Anything else?
That's fine, Crystal. Not Crystal, but Ryan. Let's keep it going.
Hi, everyone. Oh, hi, I'm Ryan Meadows. I am with Florida Virtual School, and this is my 3rd year being on the Citizens Review team.
Thank you. Ubi?
Good morning. I'm Ubi Brantley. I'm with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Thank you. James?
Good morning, James Maduro Jr. I'm with the Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. This is my 1st year with the review team, but I have over 15 years experience in grants.
All right, Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency, and this is my 7th year on the Citizens Review team. I will also be your timekeeper. You will have 15 minutes for questions and answers. We are going to allow you to do some introductions with your team. If you could just keep it very simple with your names and your role in the organization. We're also going to have a brief discussion for 5 minutes max regarding the impact of COVID-19. If you guys could please keep the answers to your questions on topic. Otherwise, I will probably interrupt you and we'll move on to the next one so we can all get our questions in. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, we can start with the introductions of the members of the agency that are on the call today.
Okay, great. So I'm Alva Striplin. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Big Bend. Have been there for 5 years now. And with me today, I'll turn it over to Brian and then to Mary Rose.
Everybody, I'm Brian Walgamot. I am the incoming chair, and sorry, Mary Rose, looks like they've got you on the screen, but I've been with the board a little over 4 years now, and looking forward to doing big things this next year.
Okay, Mary Rose.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Rose Siriani, and I have been on the board, I think it's been about a little over 7 years. I'm the current chair. It's been a 2-year term, and I will hand it over to Brian starting our next meeting coming up on July 1st. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you for being here today. As Crystal said, we're going to start off by asking about the impact of COVID-19 on your programs in terms of development, implementation, reaching out and connecting with your clients and your budget. So if you could, in 5 minutes, summarize that for us, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we began working remotely. I was looking back, it was the week that FSU went to spring break, middle of March, I believe. And 16 on staff, 15 to 16 on staff. We all work from home remotely. But not only that, we felt really strongly about transitioning all of our matches to remote as well. So we quickly reached out. The entire team was given caseloads to reach out to. It was about 350 to 400 active matches at the time. Our hardest program hit was the school-based program. We rely on the state universities for many of our mentors, and they were sent home as well. And I think everybody was just in a state of crisis. But in reaching out to our families, we started hearing the stories of our youth not having technology. They didn't know how they were going to reach out to their mentor and stay connected. They were struggling with distance learning. They were, if they even had a device in the home, they were sharing devices. So within a couple of weeks, we got serious about finding devices for our children. We raised about $20,000, made a deal with Walmart and purchased 100 devices for our children and gave them to them. And I'm telling you, the tears in the mom's eyes when they came through the drive-through for laptop pickup was it was overwhelming, and it really made every minute that we spent looking for that money worth it. That money came from individual investors. It came from a lot from Walmart. Actually, the stores each gave funds toward the program. And not only that, we bought them at cost. And then we applied for some grant funding and got another $20,000 from the Knight Foundation and purchased 100 more devices. So we now have provided almost every active match in our program, because we're definitely down in numbers. Every child has been given a device that needs one. And I am overwhelmed and grateful for that. And hopefully it not only has kept them connected with their mentor when they're being isolated, but it's also kept them able to keep up with their classwork and their studies, which we know the kids in our Title I schools are really struggling with that. They're not doing as well as their counterparts in other parts of the city, and there's no excuse for that. So So that's really how it's affected us so far. We are constantly in communication with our matches, giving them ideas of how to meet, things they can do virtually. My staff checks in with them every 3 weeks to make sure they're staying connected. But the loss of the college students has been difficult for us. We also had to cancel our largest fundraising event. And
Yeah. Alva, just a point so that they can, because they're assessing your other program. I want to make sure you have a chance. If she has a couple minutes, Crystal, you might want to speak to how COVID-19 will impact your ability to implement the pending program.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Minutes. So we are looking at continuing the program the way it is operating now, virtually, connecting our matches virtually. However, I am in very strong communications with our school district about allowing mentors to come into the school during the school year with social distancing measures in place. Our idea is, and this is connection with one of our principals at one of the other schools we serve, Riley, would be an extension of this program. But one of our largest programs is Hartsfield, and we are discussing that the having a space for the mentors to meet where there would be actually a shield, a plexiglass in front of them, much like when you go to Publix. The mentors would go into the room, the child would come in, they'd be able to see each other through the screen, and then they would separate. So there would be no physical contact. Our mentors would be asked to wear masks. So we are in discussion that'll be presented to the task force at the end of June, and we hope to implement that in the school year. If not, we'll continue virtual mentoring until we get back to where we can meet face to face, because we know this is temporary, but for now, we'll do the best we can with helping our kids virtually.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, if we can, Dr. McGee, I'll have you go ahead and kick off the questions and answers, and our time will start now.
All right. So I'm going to defer to my team members first and see if anyone has a question. Okay. Well, if not, I'll start with the questioning. I think you touched a bit on how you're going to implement this going forward, given COVID-19. And I know this is your first time in Riley, so can you tell me what you would do at Riley that's different from, say, how you would implement this program at Hartsfield or schools in other areas of the city? What would you do?
I think the first thing is to connect with the principal, then find out what they want, which I already spoke with her probably 6 months ago, even before the outbreak, and told her that I was identifying Riley as the next school we really wanted to enter, knowing that it's in the lowest 300 and it's it has some struggles unique to Riley that they're really, really focusing on. And our mentors, just reading with a child for 1 hour a week, we know impacts their life positively. So she was overwhelmed and excited about the idea to have our mentors at Riley. And, not only that, we have a Bigs in Blue program where we partner Tallahassee Police Department. Actually, we had 26 law enforcement officers that partnered as mentors and went into the school with the child. And now more than ever, that's a positive outreach between our law enforcement and our students and our community, showing a little different side of law enforcement. And I would be interested in expanding that program to Riley if it was welcomed by the principal, if that's what she saw and identified as an advantageous thing for her community. So it would be the same model, mentors meeting with their child, 1 hour a week throughout the entire school year, same model that we've extended to Hartsfield, Oak Ridge, Astoria Park, and Bond, but we would move over to Riley.
Okay. Do any of my other team members, Crystal, you're muted.
Alva, do you foresee any problems with being able to get the mentors this year, given that the universities haven't officially announced that they're going to be opening the universities and it's going to be mainly virtual?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion about that. So what we're getting from the universities is they're going to be operating 50-50. So about 50% of their students are going to be on campus and about 50% are going to remain virtual. Those children, a lot of them, the the college kids still have those community service hour requirements in a lot of their programming. So we're working with those departments. I have a wonderful board member, Brandon Bowden at FSU, and Marcus Nicholas at TCC, are both board members who help us connect with those college kid populations and help them fulfill their community service hours and connect with the youth mentoring in our program. So that's one of the methods. We're very aggressive about that. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. Our other option is we have a lot of schools, Hartsfield specifically, that has churches that are active and involved with them, but yet their populations are hesitant to go in. They may have some older populations. They're hesitant to go into the school, but they have reached out to find out how they can help. And she's been funneling those resources to us as far as mentors. So it's just morphed and created kind of a different and new opportunity for people who are willing to virtual mentor that maybe were reluctant to go in physically face-to-face during this time.
Do you foresee it impacting your fundraising efforts?
It already has. It definitely has impacted our fundraising. However, we've found additional grant funding. So there's been a lot of grant funding available. In fact, I've shifted one position completely half-time grant writing now. There's a lot of organizations out there looking to help, especially youth in our community, stay connected to someone during this time. So we found additional funding in that's sort of taken up for some of the fundraising, the event space that we've lost as far as fundraising. We do have one coming up in the fall, and the board, we're still kind of on the fence. It's our Bowl for Kids' Sake event, which we do nationwide and have for years, but it's a bowling alley. I mean, 350 people in a bowling alley putting their hands in bowling balls. So we're not quite there yet. So we're still on hold for that one.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. I just have a question. I believe I read that you're going to serve 20 students there. Do you set the criteria, or is the criteria set by the school as who qualifies with the limited numbers? I know the referrals come from the school, but who sets the criteria, who's going to be selected?
Really, the school does. And to be honest with you, what they do is they put out our parent permission forms pretty much en masse, and we're going to ask them to do it over their listserv this year because we've transitioned all of our intake forms to virtually so they can DocuSign them and fill them out and get them back to us. We have problems with parents filling out those forms. We deal with a parent population at some of those schools that doesn't communicate real well and doesn't get the forms back. So the school is the key component there in giving the forms out, identifying the students, and getting the forms returned to us. And if we have one school, and Hartsfield's a great example, they push and push and push getting those forms back to us. So the more they get back to us, the more we shift serving to that school away from others. But it's mainly because they're aggressive about getting the parents to return those forms to us. They're a really strong partner with us. So if we see that in Riley, we can then expand that program. But 20 is a good starting place.
Thank you.
James or Marie, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Since every school has their own unique characteristics, do you have a specific way of dealing or mentoring to Riley versus other schools, or is it a one-fit-all type situation?
It's definitely not a one-fit-all, and we think of it more as not so much as mentoring to that school, but mentoring to that child. What does that child need? So I have a little sister at Pineview Elementary, and I go in and quickly realize that she is an amazing reader, and she loves to read, and I'm in shock at how she pronounces the words, but she struggles with math, boy. I mean, we're struggling. So we've been doing flashcards, actually. I'll hold her up a flashcard, just like you're sitting here looking at it. She'll write down the answer and hold it back up to me. So that's how we've been communicating this summer. In addition to just chatting and hanging out. But so it's really about individually serving the child. And not only that, it's about what the principal and the administration of that school wants. So we'll find out what that principal wants specific to her population. We really rely on that. And then my staff, they're kind of like caseworkers. They'll then feed that information on to the mentor. Hey, this principal, this school, this child wants to work specifically on reading or STEM or whatever it is.
Okay, so basically, I guess that's what I'm getting at. You kind of tailor depending on whatever that that child needs to also your mentor. In other words, in your pool of mentors, you may have somebody who's real good and, for instance, deal with somebody who may have a issue with gang violence or whatever it is, or a specific subject area. So do you channel your mentors to that specific need for the child?
We do, if that's something that A, like I said, the principal wants, and B, the child opens up about. So we obviously don't ever want our mentors to go in with an agenda for their child as far as, you know, emotional topics, unless that is an agenda from the school and the child feels open about talking that. And to be honest, we had a great Zoom call with our bigs last week. We called it the big conversation, and we talked about race relations, and we talked about you know, the protests. We talked about how to communicate with your little about what's going on in our community and in our society. And I had on the call itself, white mentors that mentor white children, white mentors with black, that had a black little, I have black mentors that had black littles. So we had a big conglomeration, and the discussion was amazing. It was unbelievably breathtakingly open and honest. After we got over the awkwardness, I will say the first 30 minutes, and then at the end of it, we were all kind of like, but a lot of them shared, they want resources to know how to talk to their children about what's going on if the child opens it up. So I'll give you a great example. We had a little whose older sister had been to a protest that week and came home with the signs and you know, and the messaging, and she had some questions about that. And so our bigs were reaching out, and we are providing those resources through our national. So we're lucky we have a national framework at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And we have something called the Learning Exchange, which gives us resources that we can send to our mentors, courses, webinars, trainings, things that they need to help them be a better mentor to their little. So we're getting a lot of that information right now.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, Alva, I just had a quick question. Looking over your salary budget information.
Let everybody know we have 5 minutes.
I see that it only has a program manager. Why did you not include every person for the agency in there? I assume this is just going to be the one who'll oversee Riley, correct?
Yes. So I went in this morning and thought, I see 2 glaring mistakes in the budget, and I'm glad you brought that up. The one says the previous CHSP allocation was $401,000. That obviously is not correct. Our previous CHSP was about $20,000. That was school-based and community-based. We've never received funding specifically for Riley, so that number is incorrect. The second thing was exactly what you saw. I don't know. I'm just going to accept that it was a mistake on my part. But what I will direct you to is the section 1.1. So form 2, if you print it, I'm not sure what version you're looking at. If you printed out the document, the page 13, that is more, it specifically speaks to part of a program coordinator, part of a match support specialist, and part of it's 3 staff people. And there's a little portion of each of those that make up the $20,000. So I will just go ahead and tell you that salary information was absolutely incorrect. I don't know what happened on that last grid. I know what you're talking about.
Pat, can they make changes to that? I know last time they could, or do they just send it to us before we award?
Are you speaking of the budget numbers?
Yes.
If you want them to, they can resubmit the budget numbers to you. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm not quite sure what it'll look like, but Alva can send that to me, and then I can relay it to you as needed.
I'll tell you what I'll do is it's just that salary spread. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's that one salary grid that only one program manager got in there at $5,000. I can send you that grid in kind of a little spreadsheet form and with the corrected information if that works.
Thank you very much.
All right. Does anyone else?
Anyone have any other questions?
I just saw what you're saying, the salary information worksheet, Ryan. It looks like it just wasn't filled out. So it's the entire form itself. So if you could send me that entire form, because otherwise they don't have the information they need to make decisions. Okay.
In my defense, we were moving our office during that same month. I'm sure you're all hearing this from everybody. If there's a mistake, it was a little chaotic, but I take full blame for that, and we'll send you a correction.
Any other questions?
That's it for me.
All right, I'm good. And we're just about under a minute now for our time. So thank you very much for meeting with us and going over all of your program information.
Thank you guys for the time you spend giving your service to this program. All of the programs that CHSP serves are so wonderful, and I cannot believe the years of collaboration you have in this group. And so thank you everyone for giving your time to this. I don't know, Brian, Mary Rose, any final words?
Just reiterate what Alva said. Thank you for taking your time to put towards this, and we appreciate it much. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to start off today with team introductions, and I'll start first, and then we'll go through the rest of my team members and turn it over to our timekeeper. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work for Florida State University, and I've been a member of the Citizens Review Team for a little over 5 years. All right, Marie.
Marie Bryant. I work at Whole Child Leon, and I have been on the team for about 2 or 3 years.
All right. We'll go with James.
Huh? Go ahead. Okay. Good morning, James Maduro Jr., Grants and Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I've been with the group for 1 year. I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Ubi.
Hubie Brantley with the State of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Thank you. Ryan.
Hi, Ryan Meadows, and I have been, I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency, and this is my 7th year on the CHSP boards. I will also be your timekeeper. We are going to give you guys a moment to make introductions for the group that you have with you. We ask that you keep it limited to your names and your roles within the organization. And then we will have approximately 15 minutes to go over questions and answers. And again, I'll ask that you just keep your responses very specific to the questions that we are asking. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. McGee.
All right. Thank you, Crystal. As she said, we're going to start with board member introductions for your agency. So I'm going to turn it over to whoever's on your team, and you can start the introduction.
Excuse me, just 1 second. If everybody could mute yourselves when you're not speaking. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Button. I am the board president for the Oasis Center for Women and Girls. And I'll turn over Celeste to introduce yourself next.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Celeste Ciro, and I'm the Girls Empowerment Program Coordinator at Oasis.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
I'm Kathleen Brennan. I'm a founding member of Oasis, and I've been on the board for 7 years, and I am the immediate past president.
All right, we'll go to Andrea.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Jones, and I am also one of the founding members, and I've been on the board for about 5 years.
All right, thanks, Andrea. And rounding it out with Haley.
Everybody, wonderful to see so many familiar faces here. My name is Haley Cutler. I'm the former executive director of Oasis. I recently moved back to town and am providing some consulting services to help support the organization through the leadership transition. Thanks for your service today, everybody.
You to share. Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're going to start today's presentation by asking you to share with us the impact of COVID-19 on your program in terms of developing the program, how you're going to implement it, how you're going to connect with your clients, and then also in terms of budgeting.
Great. Well, thank you. I'll take that question. We successfully shifted all of our in-person girls circles. So our format for the Girls Circles program for the Promise Zone is in-person site specific. So it was a transition for us to shift those existing circles in the middle of the pandemic to a virtual format. And we successfully did that and concluded those circles. We did have some participants unable to participate due to digital divide issues and parent and guardian capacity to onboard during that transition period. We augmented that program with wellness check-in calls to all of our participants. And so, so that's how we made our transition through the pandemic. We're eager to get back to in-person setting as the environment continues to change, but we are also looking at potential virtual offerings as well. And so we're monitoring, because many of our girls circles flow through the school district, monitoring how the school district evolves going into the next academic year, and modifying our program to meet that type of delivery model as well.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start with questions. So I'm going to turn it over to my team, and if you have a question, please feel free. You're muted, James.
I apologize. I have a question about the LGBTQ community. As we heard in the news, a lot of times they're left out of the equation. So I'm wondering, do you have any specific mentorship or recruitment tools that you use to access and make sure that they're taken care of?
Thank you for the question. So we're very proud of our program delivery model in that it is an inclusive one, and staff is specifically, facilitators and staff are specifically trained in LGBTQ responsive programming. And so we make sure that when we do recruit and how we advertise the program is that it is a welcoming one. It is for all girls and all and youth identifying as girls. And we make sure that that is very clear in our recruitment models and how we execute the programs as well.
So I know on the last funding term, we notated that we'd like to see ways for you to strengthen the program design to improve your participant involvement, specifically in the Promise Zone. In what ways have you guys implemented that?
So we are very excited. We have been able to in a few ways. So we're able to better track the where the delivery model is happening. We are doing it in schools that are located in the Promise Zone and community centers and after school programs in the Promise Zone. And we track the addresses of the participants so we know who we're delivering to. And in the program design itself, you will notice in this application, we are looking to extend the program delivery model to a full year as opposed to a semester-based model, because what that gets us is more consistency for the girls. What we felt like is we really start building trust, wonderful relationships. The curriculum is working, the girls are communicating, and then the semester's sort of concluding. So we think this program design will be great for consistency and really responsive for the attendees. And we're changing the format in terms of the day we want to execute as well, going to a Tuesday, Thursday model. And that seems like it's going to work because it's after school. When holidays become involved, those days of the week at the ends is when things sort of tend to fall off. So we're excited, and that's how we've looked at shifting the model, as well as moving to 90 minutes, where we can really get a lot of content and engagement in that time frame.
Can I add one thing, Marissa?
Yeah.
So one of the really exciting shifts that I think demonstrates the responsiveness of the program to improvements for improving outcomes is that the shift towards going to the year-long, the full academic year instead of just the 90 days was because we ended up partnering with the Young County Schools and were able to pull academic records and grades to see if we were supporting, if our enrichment program was supporting school involvement. And what we found is that we actually were able to support girls with C averages and improving their grades in school if they were with us for 2 semesters. We didn't see that same success in the 1 semester program. And so we want to, all the changes that Marissa talked about in terms of the relational stuff with the girls in the Promise Zone is so important to build that relationship and make sure that we're there for their social and emotional needs, but also in terms of supporting their academic achievement. Switching to this full year model is a data-driven decision that we believe will be very exciting in terms of the outcomes that you're able to see next year based on the evidence from the prior year.
All right, anyone else have a question? Yubi or Ryan?
I actually noticed going through your information that we had encouraged you guys to increase your fundraising efforts, but I'm still not seeing under this particular program where there is any fundraising.
We do have overall organizational fundraising efforts. So we're a small organization, and the portions of the program that are not funded through the grant. So the application references compensation as the biggest part of the budget request. All of the other aspects in terms of that it takes to execute the program are done through unrestricted funds of the organization, which is conducted through fundraising. So we are actively fundraising. We have had, this has been a COVID shift as well. Actually, we have one of our big fundraisers, the Celebration of Women and Girls, has been shifted and will be a virtual model at the end of the year. But what we've also done in the meantime is avail ourselves of any grants or resources and applying for things that are available during this COVID timeframe. So we're acutely aware of any gaps we're going to need to fill and moving towards those. So we are fundraising and intend to continue to do so.
How do you think that with those gaps, how do you plan to fill those? What are some ideas you're coming up with?
So in terms of what we're going to, I think the gaps we've been able to in the short term, because we've had a transition overall from leadership as well. We've been able to achieve the PPP funding and the LEAN grant, and those have been wonderful opportunities and for us. And in the meantime, adjusting to what we're delivering and I think that we're well positioned to make sure that we continue to have those fundraising efforts. So that's where a lot of our unrestricted comes in, and we are going to be able to shift to those types of either virtual options or engaging with our donor community in other ways.
And just to be super crystal clear, as Marissa mentioned, our biggest fundraiser of the year, the Celebration of Women and Girls, was supposed to be happening. We've moved to a virtual event that is happening in August, and so we're hopeful that that'll be an opportunity for our community to come together, but also to support the organization.
And if I may, to conclude that question, we also had a great Giving Tuesday Now campaign that our board of directors filled the gap in to basically provide lots of information about our programming, and we got a lot of exposure that way and donations as well. So the board is pulling together to do everything that we can as well.
Marissa, can you tell us how much of a gap your Giving Tuesday Now filled in terms of your fundraising? Because I know that was a new initiative this year to help offset some of the activities organizations couldn't participate in.
I know that we were able to raise over, now I'm virtually looking at Kathleen because she was our board member that facilitated that. So she can't kick me under the table, but I believe we were close to or over $8,000 in our efforts on Giving Tuesday.
We have 5 minutes remaining.
It looks like Kathleen was okay with my response.
I have a follow-up question. Based on, I guess, that you're going to lengthen from a half a school year to the full school year, I anticipate you're going to need additional staff. So what are you going to do to make sure that you don't, for lack of a better word, decrease the effectiveness of the program, since you're going to probably have to get more mentors, more resources, that kind of stuff? How are you going to transition from doing it half a year to a full year and still be effective? Since it seems like that's the best way to go to improve the GPA of the students.
Thank you for the question. A little bit of that, I think, is it speaks to in what we've transitioned in the terms of the unduplicated clients. So the unduplicated clients we intend to serve is 36. And that's a decrease. We have staffing represented in the budget for our Girls Empowerment Coordinator, Celeste, who's here with us, and 2 facilitators as well. And then we will, another method of delivery is that we engage with interns through both FAMU and FSU as that are trained in the Girls Circle curriculum as co-facilitators, working with our full-time staff. And so we are, that's how we're looking at being able to effectively implement and have the resources available, and to making sure that we're doing check-ins with one another, that things are going according to how we plan them to be. And what we've done is build really great relationships, we think, in our sites and with our site coordinators to be able to achieve that.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question. So some of the changes you've made to address COVID, going virtual and things like that, what are some of the things that you may bring forward that are cost effective and can save you money in other areas if you continue to do them this way?
I think we're still exploring and hope to learn more about what we can do virtually. For us, the program there is a piece of it that is so important with the curriculum, that you build the trust through those face-to-face relationships, but we're all learning how we can grow through the virtual model. And so I think that's probably our biggest opportunity for growth. And as our partners, such as the school districts and community centers, build into bridging the digital divide, I think that us working with them about how they are implementing programs will ultimately be saving us resources in the long run as well. So it's not recreating the wheel, it's working with organizations that are in the promise zone, how delivery models are working for the targeted population, and how we can augment and support through our programs the target population we're working with.
I'm noticing that you guys are still a predominantly female board. Have you guys looked at diversifying that any? I know it's been a CHSP request previously.
Yes, thank you. We are, and I will make this very quick. We're aware of the request. Our board has vigorously and robustly talked about this issue. And as a women serving organization that is here to empower, support, and celebrate women, our position on this is that we want to keep our leadership seats at the table of our board of directors, women and girls held, because we have girls on the board as well. We serve women and girls. We want to be a model for that leadership to the population that we're serving. And so we're very proud of that. We are proud of the diversity on our board, notwithstanding that we don't have men on the board. We have also decided that in lieu of changing anything with the board of directors membership in that regard, that we're looking at creating a community council. The application talks about that a little bit. But we're
so sorry to interrupt, but we are out of time.
I got it in. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
You guys have a great day too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member of the CHSP review team for 5 years. Yubi?
Good morning. My name is Yubi Brantley. I'm with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Thank you. Ryan? Ryan back? Nope. All right, we'll go on to James.
James Maduro Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I'm with the group. This is my first year, and I have over 15 years experience in grants.
Thank you. Marie?
Bryant, Whole Child Leon. I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
All right, and I think Renee is there with you. Hear you, Pat.
Renee, please introduce yourself, but you have to unmute her.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Renee Gadsden. I work with Leon County Schools and the community South Side.
Thank you. And Ryan?
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows, and I am with Florida Virtual School, and I've been on the CHS review team for 3 years.
All right, Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency, and I have been on the CHSP review team for 7 years. I will also be your timekeeper. We're going to give you guys a minute or two to do some brief introductions. If you would, just limit it to your names and your roles within your organization. And then we will have 20 minutes for questions and answers. And for the first portion of that, we're going to turn it over to Dr. McGee, who is going to go over that first segment with you.
All right, thank you, Crystal. All right, we will begin with introductions for the members from the Boys and Girls Club.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Maddox. I am CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. Been there since August of 2019. Casey?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Casey Dennis. I'm the Director of Operations with the Boys and Girls Club of the Big Bend, and I've been here for about 16 years.
So so what you need to do is log into Right Networks on her computer.
Rita?
No, your Right Network on her computer. On her.
Rita?
She's on. It sounds like she's having a different combo.
Yeah. Okay. Rita is our
I would have to get her a QuickBooks statement.
Rita is our Director of Finance. She's been with us for about 5 months now.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and get the questions started, and we're going to start with asking you to share with us the impact of COVID-19 on your program in terms of development, implementation, reaching your clients and your budget. And if you could keep that to less than 5 minutes, it'll allow us to ask more questions and to be able to have meaningful information to use in our decision.
Okay. I'll start out by just saying we went to a virtual format to make sure we're able to serve as many kids as possible. Our club directors, as well as Mr. Dennis, our director of development, has been implementing the plan that we set forth at the beginning of this COVID-19 epidemic. We're actually planning to reopen our facilities on June the 6th at the latest. We are thinking of maybe even trying some test locations in the next couple of days. And so I'm going to give Mr. Dennis a chance to give you a little bit more of the detail of what we have going. Casey.
Yes. So with COVID-19, we've definitely been able to still impact lives through the virtual settings. Each week, we reach out to each one of our youth in the Promise Zone area 2 times per week, just to do wellness checks, just to check in on them. How you doing? Find out things that they're needing. We're also still able to do lots of our programming through that area, through that source as well. We do lots of our Smart Moves programs. We can actually meet with the kids through Zoom and do sort of things like that during this time.
Thank you. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to my team and we will begin the question and answer section. You're muted, James.
Apologize. I'm the rookie, so I'm making my rookie mistakes. I apologize. But real quick, I have a question with, as we know, the Promise Zone has a lot of socioeconomic disadvantaged kids in it. So we're talking about reaching out to them virtually. How has that really impacted your ability to do that, since we know that a lot of times they don't have the communications like laptops and that kind of stuff to really communicate with us? So how are you tackling that type of situation in this environment?
Well, I'll start out by talking about the fact that we have actually purchased some iPads to give to those children who are in need, as well as trying to get them also Wi-Fi network connections so they can actually have access to us as well. And Casey will go more in detail about it. Casey?
Definitely. Through our Comcast grant, we're able to really impact those kids' lives. Where we're, like Mr. Maddox just stated, we're able to give those kids laptops, iPads, so they're able to definitely still communicate with us and actually do all their homework and classwork and things like that.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. Have you seen, I guess it's new, so you may not have a complete answer to this, but have you seen like a difference, for instance, related to the kids physically in person, and now you're going virtual? How effective, I guess, is the program going to be, since it seemed like it was geared more to a one-on-one or a contact type relationship, and now you're doing it virtual? To really impact a smaller group of kids, but it is different. It's definitely different, and everything we're really gearing up to get back. It is different, definitely.
I will add to that by saying we're still able to service about 80% of the average daily attendance that we were servicing before. It's not in the exact way we like to service them, but at least we are getting some kind of service to them. We're also just this month we did to get kids more active physically. We did a 30-mile challenge for those kids who are not only with Boys and Girls Club, but those kids who are not with the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll do a cash prize raffle to those who make the actual challenges. So we're coming up with creative ways to try to motivate our kids and get access to our kids. But we're definitely looking back to getting back with them in person and being able to service them in a physical manner, in a physical location. But we've done the best we could virtually by trying to service as many as we can and making sure we're hitting at least, like I said, 80 to 90% of the children that we serve.
Thank you.
And just to piggyback off of what Mr. Maddox said, we're also able to serve new kids in this environment. We're reaching out to, deeper into the community, to parents who are looking for, new ways to get their kids involved. So we're actually been able to increase enrollment during this time period.
Great, thank you.
Good morning.
Are you guys still utilizing the point system?
Well, the point system is a little difficult because it was a star system where the kids would come in, and for different things that they completed throughout the day, we would give them a star, and at the end of the week they could use those points to get things from our store. So that's a little different nowadays.
Okay, see, with some of the challenges that's going on in the community, have it affected the children that y'all interact with?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. You said, has it affected the kids that we interact with? Yes, ma'am. It definitely has. Like I said, with us, talking to those kids 2 times per week, we definitely hear a lot of kids and a lot of struggles that they're dealing with. But it's really great that we're able to have those conversations with those kids and with those parents, so that they know that we are a continued resource for them. Parents who need things, they know they can call us, and if we have that means, we'll definitely provide those things for those kids and those families. So it's definitely great for us to be able to talk to those kids weekly like that.
I'll add to that by saying that the personal relationships our club directors and staff have with those kids, and being able to reach out to them by phone, allow the kids to sometimes talk about things that they're feeling and things they want to say to our club directors that they might not normally say to their parents. And so the idea of the conflict resolution programs that we have, along with, again, just knowing the kids the way that our club directors and staff do, they're able to have conversations that they normally wouldn't have with their peers, with their parents. And I think it has helped a great number of our kids process what's going on, because this is something that's hard for, what we're going through right now is hard for adults to handle and understand. So you can only imagine an adolescent or even a teen trying to gather in their mind what these things mean to them and how they'll react to what's going on around them. And so I think we're perfectly positioned to be able to be that crutch that helps them get through these hard times.
I have a question in terms of adapting. So what parts of your program moving forward that you've had to adapt due to COVID, do you see being able to move forward and perhaps being able to use those resources in another way? Because I know you can't do the store or the earning of points for the reward system, but positive reinforcement for the behavior you're looking for is important. How can you reimagine those things so that you could do it virtually if you had to?
Definitely, I think we could reinvent the whole point system, because we interact with the kids through different online mediums. So we could definitely kind of reinvent that point system to where those kids get those points virtually, and that they could get maybe gift cards at the end of the week or things like that. So I think that we can definitely look at ways to just switch around that point system, because it was very effective in promoting great behavior, promoting those kids, getting those, turning in those report cards and getting good grades in school. So we just got to work around that, but I'm sure that we can do that. And
So from a virtual standpoint, I mean, like I said, we are trying to get back in where we are. We will be opening back up our facilities on the 6th. And so we'll be able to get back to the point system at that point in some manner or way. But what we've tried to do in the interim is just be creative in the way we do things. Like I just mentioned a second ago about the 30-mile challenge and the raffle and giveaway as motivation to get those kids out moving, walking, running in their communities, even though we can't be with them, touching them. That's motivating them to get out there. We got hundreds of kids involved in that program, all getting physically fit, which also contributes to their mental relaxation through that program. And so using things like that, using different techniques and incentives like that are the ways we try to be creative. But it's caught COVID has caught everybody at a disadvantage of trying to come up with something on the run. But I think we've tried, and I think we've been creative about how we're going about it and trying to make sure we incentivize and motivate our children to keep moving and keep learning.
And
I have
also, as we
really quick, guys, on your audited financial statements, I'm looking through here and it looks like with this application term, you guys submitted the 16 and 17 audited financials. Do you have any more current?
Yes, we're right now in the middle of our audit. We were actually gathering materials right at the beginning of COVID. They started in thinking like January, February. And so the auditor had just sent us our questions right when we started COVID. And so we're gathering those materials to give to the auditor now so they can finish up our audit. And so no, that's the most current one we have. I think we may have one more. If we do, we'll send it to you. But that's the most current one that we have that I could find in our system.
Okay. Do you guys have an unaudited statement? Because I'm just looking at the numbers and the assets between 16 and 17 dropped significantly. So I'm curious to see where you guys are standing kind of right now.
If Rita's still on, I think she can give you an idea of just, if you're talking about just current day, how we're looking as far as our balance sheet and everything is concerned. I think she can give you an idea on that. Rita, you still on? Rita?
Rita, you need to unmute yourself, or either maybe Virginia can help you. You're muted, Rita. Please unmute yourself.
There she is. Rita? Must be having some problems over there hearing this. Rita? Well, I can just speak from our last board meeting in terms of where we are. We sit in a pretty good place, much further along than what we were back in 16 and 17. My priority has been since I got there in August to try to build us financially to a place of stability. Right now, we have about, with that being building up some kind of reserve, so when things like COVID hit, we're able to sustain ourselves. And so right now we have about $75,000 to $80,000 in a reserve account. That's a money market account with Capital City Bank. We were able to access the PPP money from the federal government in terms of about $120,000. Our bank statements right now between our two accounts look at about or anywhere. I think last I saw it was over 200,000 sitting right now. That's just our operating account. That does not include the actual money market account that we have. So financially, we're looking pretty good. Our payroll is running about 50 to 55,000 a month. So financially, we're sitting pretty good. CHSP has been a great help to us. We also have partnerships with Gaston County and the Free All Foundation and other foundations as well. And so I was just talking to my finance chair last week, and he told me this is the best place we've been financially in the past 10 years. So we feel pretty confident about where we are and moving forward, how we're going to look and being responsible with the dollars that we bring in with our spending, while also trying to make sure that we're building reserves to be able to function in case something like a COVID-19 hits or something of that nature. Crystal.
Thank you for that, Nick. Sorry if I interrupted anybody. I do notice that in terms of your application, your biggest fundraising event that you all had, I think it's called the Steak and Burger, What are you doing? I heard some of the things, but what else are you guys doing to really kind of supplement that, since it sounds like something that might be difficult to do in a virtual format?
Right. So Steak and Burger actually is doing pretty well. We're still going to do it. Right now, I think.
Sorry to interrupt. We're down to the last 5 minutes.
Steak and Burger is actually doing pretty well. We're still doing it. I think, Casey, we raised about 25,000 already from a virtual format.
5,000. Yes, sir.
Right. John Daly, Mayor John Daly is going to be our speaker. But what I'm trying to do that hasn't been as stout as it was is I'm trying to create, or we're going through the process of creating a personal giving program. And so reaching out to folks to become annual givers at different levels, and also trying to reach out for major gifts as well. We are in the process of hiring another, because our past director of development retired, but we're in the process of hiring a director of development to help us develop those programs. But my background is in fundraising, so I have a pretty good understanding of how to create a solid fundraising program. So that's what we're trying to do. While also we're dealing with COVID. I'm sorry, we're still doing Steak and Burger. We'll still have our golf tournament coming up in the fall, but we're also in this process of reaching out to donors for major gifts outside of that and building our annual gift program, and that's been pretty successful too.
I have a question in terms of your outcomes and the study you cited, the 2013 Tax Watch study.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of your outcomes, what years are those for your published data that you have? At least on what I'm looking at, it's on page 38.
And to speak to that, we also have more updated outcomes based off of, because every year we're required to send some our outcomes to BGCA. And so, Casey, do you want to speak to that as well as what we're doing currently as far as our ADA is in registration?
For the answer to that question is actually according to the Tax Watch study of 2016. And the juvenile pre-arrest diversion program that was between April 2015 and March 2016.
All right, Renee, you have a question?
Renee, you need to unmute yourself.
How are you going to have more interaction with the kids if you're not able to open? And currently, if you're doing 2 days a week, how can you increase that, especially on Texas Street where I see the kids having a lot of activities? How are you going to get more active with the children if you don't reopen?
If we don't reopen, we contact the kids 2 times a week, but we also interact with the kids through Zoom on other days throughout the week. So we're actually have some kind of contact with the kids at least 4 to 5 days each week. Right now, we're also doing the lunch program, so we see those kids every day. So they come through to get those breakfasts and lunches with us. So we see them every day. So we're definitely that's going on right now.
And to your point about us opening, it's not a question of if we're not able to open. We've actually we have our guidelines and precautions in place to open. So we are going to open. That's where we are. Our board have voted on it. We want to open to service our kids. We're also, like I said, we have our guidelines and precautions in place, temperature checking and all that kind of stuff. All the things that the CDC is recommending for child care facilities or after school care facilities. And so we are open. We are guaranteed to open until the governor or the state or the district, if we're in the district school, tells us that we can no longer use their facilities. But even if we can't use the district's facilities, we have our own that will be open. And so we will, as of June 6th, and we're even looking at a little earlier, going to be open to service those kids. I think it's important that we provide that kind of relief for our parents, not only for our kids, but for our parents too, because during this time, eventually they will have to go back to work. And we want to make sure that we are some relief for those who need to take their kids somewhere while they're at work and know that their kids not only be safe, but be learning and be being active while they're with us. And so we not opening is not an option for us right now. We are going to.
Thank you, Nick, so much. We are out of time. I want to thank you guys so much for meeting with us this morning and going over your program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, process.
All right. Well, welcome, Sharon. We're going to start today with brief introductions of the team. I will start first. My name's Marilyn McGee. I work for Florida State University, and I've been on the CHSP team for 5 years. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to James.
Good morning, James Maduro Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. This is my first year with this unique group, and I've been working in the grant world for about 15 years.
All right, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows, and I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I have been on the CHSP Grants Committee for 3 years.
Thank you. Renee. Is Renee muted? You're muted, Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson. I've been working with Leon County Schools for 23 years. I've been in the community for 25 years. And I've been with the grant CHP. This is my, oh goodness, 6 years.
All right, thank you. Yubi.
Good morning. I'm Yubi Brantley with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Thank you. Marie.
My name is Marie Bryant. I'm with Hope Child Leon. I've been with CHP maybe 2 or 3 years. I almost forgot. But I live, I'm a South Side resident, been on the South Side for about 57, 58 years.
Thank you. And Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency. I will also be your timekeeper today. Introductions will be brief since you're the only one on your team, but if you could just limit your introduction to your name and your role within the agency. We will then have 20 minutes for questions and answers. And our first question is going to be how the COVID-19 has impacted your ability to perform. But if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, we will get started after.
Certainly. My name's Sharon Tyler. I'm the Executive Director for Red Cross here in the capital area.
All right, thank you, Sharon. And as Crystal said, if you could start by sharing with us how COVID-19 has implemented your program in terms of development, implementation, being able to reach out to your clients in your budget.
So as a disaster services program, we can't let COVID stop us, and COVID is no respecter of the fact that disasters go on. And so obviously we still are working with our clients. Our service delivery has not stopped at all with our disaster clients. It has changed. However, we've had to move it to virtual and remote as much as possible. There still is the interaction with the client, but when that happens, we maintain social distance and make sure our clients and our volunteers have got the proper PPE equipment so that everybody is safe as possible. We've had to buy a whole lot of technology, smartphones and computers so that our volunteers can work out in the field and not come into the chapter. We're still, the chapter is still closed to the public and it's closed to the staff because being the humanitarian organization that operates during disasters, our staff has got to be the last one standing. We've got to maintain health and safety and when I say staff, I mean volunteers, because 90% of our staff is volunteers. And so it's critical that we keep them healthy and safe. It's changed a lot of the only service that it's actually that we've stopped and not had to adapt or not been able to adapt is our home fire campaign. And right now that's on hold because we can't go into individual homes and install the free smoke alarms and sit down with the families like we normally do. So that's been put on hold. We're moving our others to virtual platforms like our community outreach and our presentations we're working real hard and with partners to develop virtual platforms so that we can still make sure that those preparedness services are delivered.
right, thank you. We're going to open up the floor for questions now.
Okay. I actually have a question. So if you have your smoke alarm program that is put on hold, does that change your request for funding? Or is that a program that you're anticipating being able to pick back up during the fiscal year?
Yes, we have all hopes that we will start it back in the fiscal year. It depends, it's just like everybody else. Everybody's kind of in a wait and see what things look like and what COVID does and how it changes. But no, we're definitely, I mean, that's a critical program. It's a life-saving program. So the minute that we can start doing it, we've actually talked about whether or not we can develop a virtual platform for that. The challenge with it is we install the smoke alarms when we go in, our volunteers do. We don't give them to the homeowners or the residents that live there. And so there's talks about, is there a way for us to be able to do that and provide the technology that they could use to be able for us to talk to them, remotely, like we're doing right now. Could I talk someone through doing it? That's still very much in the beginning conversations because we really want that face-to-face sit down with the clients opportunities.
That was actually my follow-up, was whether or not you guys had looked into the utilization of iPads and video chats and so on and so forth as far as installation goes.
So we're totally doing that with our home fires where we can, and that way the only client interaction is when we actually go give them the debit card with funds on it, because we can do the virtual, we can do the drive-bys, and with the smartphones they can take the pictures and do the video chats. But with the actual smoke alarm, it's just a different scenario.
Okay. All right. Marie, did you have a question?
I think Renee do. I was just wondering.
Okay.
Well, she just answered my question. I wanted to know what they were going to do as far as getting out to more people, if they could possibly mail them out, the smoke alarms, and how are they going to reach communities that can't do the virtual?
Right.
Well, question about your strategy, because I noticed last year, like, you were able to install smoke alarms in 100% of the residents that you approached. And so I was just wondering what your strategy was. Did you build this off of some other program that you had and those were targeted, and so you went to those specific individuals, or was this strictly from canvassing the neighborhood?
It's totally from canvassing, but we also, I think that percentage that you're talking about is 100% of the ones that we were able to get into. We were able to provide those services to. We didn't get into a home and then them all of a sudden say, no, we don't want a smoke alarm and we're not willing to do a home fire escape plan. But we do go canvass ahead of time. When we can, we let the home, if there's a homeowners association, or even whether it's official or a loose one, we let them know that we're coming. We try to let the churches in the area know, because just as much communication as possible. And when we pre-canvass, we typically do that a week ahead of time. We usually take the fire department with us. We don't take any law enforcement, just because that's that people don't want to open their doors if they see police out there, but they do feel more confident with the Red Cross brand and with the fire department there. They know that we're there to help and serve, and we don't care. Like when we go into a home, we don't look and see what's in there, as far as because we've gone into homes, and to be quite frank, we've seen things that would curl your hair, curl this straight hair. But that's not what we look at. We see it, but we don't do anything about it. The main focus is on the people who trust us to let us come in and work with them.
Has the COVID-19, is that going to affect your ability to be able to do the canvassing and going door to door?
It will be, yes. That's what we're talking about. Why, until the restrictions are even lifted more, to where people are comfortable and our volunteers are comfortable and people are comfortable letting people in their homes, then we won't be able to do that. Now, the canvassing and passing out the information, we can still do that, because you can do that and not have contact with anybody. we can leave the preparedness information on the door hangers. That was one of the, in the funding part, one of the small funding part is for that type of material that we leave behind. Whether it's the pre-canvassing information, we typically on the pre-canvassing only leave the note saying we're coming back, and this is why we're coming back and what we would like to work with you on. The actual material that we give them is a packet that's got all of the information in it. And so, there's, like I said, the talk about whether or not what could we possibly do if for some reason we're not able to go into the home, can we move this virtual? But that's still very much in the beginning stage because, again, our main goal is to get back in the house.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you don't receive the amount of funding that you're requesting, would it affect your ability to be able to provide the services that you're doing? Because it seems like the funding that you're requesting, it's not like you really need to utilize all the funding because you're not able to serve the clients.
So the funding for the preparedness stuff and the fire alarms we still need the funding for the fire alarms because again, our main intent is to get back in the homes and do it. But whether or not we're able to actually do the installs, there's still critical to, can y'all still hear me? Because my computer looks like it's okay. It's making funny faces at me. To get the preparedness information out because our at-risk communities and neighborhoods are the ones that need the preparedness most. They need to be as resilient as possible. So in the past, we've done that by doing our community presentations, speaking at churches, speaking at whatever we can get in front of. We do tabling events at the neighborhood meetings, and all that is what we're trying to move to a virtual platform, and that comes with an expense. And we've had to get some videographers and some other partners to work with us to see what can we move to the virtual platform so that we can get this main information. And the biggest portion of this funding that we need and we're requesting is for the staff person to be able to manage all this. I mean, it's for the person to go out and make sure that the promise zone area and our at-risk neighborhoods in Leon County are covered and taken care of.
Oh, go ahead, Jane.
Yes, I have a quick question. And it ties into everything you just talked about. Of course, it's going to be adjustments because of COVID-19. So it looks like right now you're not going to have that deliberate way of installing the fire alarms. So do you have a plan to say, okay, I want to serve, I think you want to serve additional 1,000 or whatever it is. How am I now going to incorporate that on an accelerated program? Because more than likely, you're not going to be able to stagger it, but you'll have to go and put in all these fire alarms at an expedited type manner. So have you looked at that since, you got to deal with this COVID-19 and you can't do it right now, but you may have people say, yeah, I want it done, and then you have to accelerate the whole process. Have you looked into that?
We have, and actually in some of our neighborhood, some of our counties, we work directly with the fire department and they do some of the installs. So we're talking with our disaster team to see, what can we beef that up more? Are they, because now my son-in-law is actually a firefighter, so I know the equipment they have and it's full-fledged, top to bottom, totally covered. And so would we be able to work with them so that they could do that? And then, and as they do in some of the other counties. Now, granted, Leon County and our Tallahassee Fire Department are a little bit busier than some of our other fire departments in our surrounding counties. And so it is more of a challenge. But yeah, we're definitely working and talking because this is a nationwide campaign that's a critical campaign to save lives. We've saved over 780 verified lives from these smoke alarms. We've had lives in our 12 county area that are verified, like where we had installed a smoke alarm and a year later the people had a fire and were able to get out because of the smoke alarms. And so the smoke alarms are critical, but so is just as much critical as the information, because you can have a smoke alarm, and we've gone in and when we've asked children, what do you do when this goes off, and they think water comes out of it. It's the education proponent, and part of this is critical.
And that was my follow-up. So you just touched on it because it's a two-pronged approach. It seems like you put in the fire alarm, but like you said in the application, you ask people how long you have for a fire, they think 5 minutes, and it's really 2 minutes.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a key component. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm glad you just said what you said, but it's not just getting the smoke alarms in, it's actually telling people, because even if you don't have a smoke alarm, how much time do you have to get all the information that they need to make sure that they have the opportunity and won't be a victim of fire? So thank you.
Well, and to your point, I think it's critical for them to have a home fire safety escape plan. And usually when I do presentations, even a group like you, I would say, do y'all have you practiced your smoke alarm fire escape plan? Do you have a fire escape plan? Not smoke alarm fire, but it's fire escape plan. And if you've got children, it is critical that you not just have one, but that you practice it so that you can see what your gaps are. And you may think that window's perfect to go out of, but right in front of it, is something that would harm you if you try to jump out. Or we've gone to some of our housing areas here, and they've actually got screwed locks on the windows, and so that would take extra time. So all of those things factor in, and it's critical that we work with people to help them think through those things, because when you have a disaster, something that happens just like that, a lot of people go into shock, and so you need to be able to fall back on a rote plan.
Thank you. Good information.
Hi, Sharon. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
Go ahead.
Hi, Sharon. I noticed that you all wonderfully were still able to have your major fundraiser of the year. What is your plan going forward for that canteens and camo? Are you planning to do it next year? Being over $100,000, that's quite a large fundraiser.
Yes, we are planning to do it. We actually, the board, I've got, like I said originally, an incredible board, very, very engaged. And so we're having plan A, B, and C. A is things are great and we can go back to, a large congregate setting, because this last one we had like 375 people at it. But more likely, since we've got it planned for January, unless we move it to February or March, we're probably going to have to make it look a little bit different. It's such a huge fundraiser, we have to have it. I mean, we don't raise enough money in our area to support our what we do as it is, and so it's a critical fundraiser for us. So we're talking about looking at having different tiered levels. I won't go into all the details, but the creative minds on my board have a food truck layer, have an event at a car dealership layer, and then have some really nice meals in homes, and still be able to deliver the same information. Because the biggest part, and if any of you have attended our event, is the information that we share. We take every opportunity to share preparedness information, to tell our story, what we do, so that the people understand that they're not there just to raise money, but they're there to learn too. And so it's just really important to us that we still be able to have that event. Our hurricane run, we changed to a virtual event because it was May 16th. So we had to cancel the actual event itself. But and we're only going to raise probably about half of what we normally would raise. But the good news of that is part of it is because we lost a really big sponsor, which was $20,000. So I think we're still going to come in at about half of what we normally raise. But for us in this virtual environment, we're excited about that.
Hey guys, everybody, we're down to our last 4 minutes. So if anyone has any additional questions.
I do. I have a question. Sharon, can you share with us, because your organization does a lot of canvassing, what is your conversion percentage in terms of smoke alarm installation? So if you canvass, say, 1,000 or say 5,000 people within a year through all of your events, what percentage would you say you end up installing a smoke alarm? Or
so the 5,000 number you throw out is more of who we reach from a preparedness outreach information. I would be beyond tickled pink if we could even think we could install 5,000 smoke alarms a year. So our typical goal is around 500 to 750 smoke alarms a year. This fiscal year, we're going to be at probably about 483, because we've not been able to install any since the middle of March. We would have surpassed our goal of 500 this year. And so the neighborhoods that we actually are intentional about targeting. And as I said, probably 75% of those neighborhoods are within the promise zone. But I know that this isn't a news flash to any of you. We've got a lot of at-risk neighborhoods that are not in the promise zone. So we want to make sure that we cover those neighborhoods as well. So I would say probably about 80% of the ones that we approach that don't have working smoke alarms allow us in to install them. And then probably of the ones, say, if you've got 100 people that already have smoke alarms, at least 50% of those people are willing to let us in and let us help them develop a fire escape plan and talk about and not just the fire escape plan, but what are your disaster plans? And that's so critical right now in COVID, getting that information out, because as we all know, people need to think hurricane season and need to think it's going to look different. Or it potentially might. And if you evacuated to Aunt Jane's house, you may not be able to do that this year because Aunt Jane may be elderly or sick, or you may be elderly and not want to, risk that. So we're really working hard to encourage people to look at their plans now.
And then you listed some civic organizations that you work with to do some of the camping. Can you share with us
Renee Gatson
who some of those
has
are?
joined the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Were you able to hear my full question?
Yes, I think you ask it again because I did get.
Well, I just was saying on your application you work with civic organizations.
Oh, yes.
So
Right. So I'm a member of Rotary, and we've got several really active Rotary clubs that help us as far as the canvassing. The Kiwanis have a couple of the clubs that have expressed interest. To be honest, we haven't really gotten them quite as engaged as we would like. We've got FSU Club and the FAMU Rattler Club. These are our college clubs, and so those kids, young adults, help us as well with our canvassing. And so Junior League is good to work with us on any projects actually that we ask them to. There's also a Junior Women's Club of Tallahassee that we've engaged in the past and are looking to re-engage as well.
And they will work with you in the promise zone for.
Well, and we've got some great partnerships more from a sheltering standpoint with some of the churches within the promise zone. And we've actually been meeting, or going to continue to meet, if we may have to do it this way virtually, but and talk about stronger partnerships, because neighbors, Red Cross is a neighbor helping a neighbor. And so it really helps if you know that neighbor. And so if your neighbor comes to you and says, we've got this great program, do you have working smoke alarms, or do you have?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, I just very quickly want to thank you all for your time and for the effort, because I know that this is a lift for you. So thank you for your time.
Person, she's going to start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start the meeting with brief team introductions. I'll go first, and then the rest of the team, and finally our timekeeper. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been on the CHSP review team for 5 years. Yubi.
Good morning, I'm UB Brantley, work for the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows, and I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I have been on this panel for 3 years.
All right, James.
Good morning, James Medora Jr., Grants Management's Office, City of Tallahassee. I've been with the group for a year, and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Marie.
Me? Hi, I'm Maria Gavina.
Sorry, I meant Marie, our team member.
Oh, okay.
My name is Marie Bryant. I work at Whole Child Leon. I've been on CHSP for 2 to 3 years, and I'm a Southside resident.
Thank you. And Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson. I work for Leon County Schools, and I've been on the South Side 25, 26 years.
Thank you. Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency, and I have been serving the CHSP teams for the past 7 years. I will also be your timekeeper. We will have 20 minutes for questions and answers. The first section of that is going to be dedicated to how the COVID-19 has affected your ability to implement your particular programs. We're going to allow you guys to do a brief introduction of the group that you have with you today. If you could please limit that to your names and your roles within the organizations. And with that being said, we'll get started.
Over to our guests to introduce themselves.
You want me to go? Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, I'm Dina Foster. I serve on the board for AMI Kids Tallahassee. I was former board chair for 3 years and recently headed off, and our current chairman is Samantha Vance. I've been involved with AMI Kids since I moved to Florida in 2013. I first served on their board in the Emerald Coast, and then when we relocated to Tallahassee in 2015, I joined the board. I'm also a member of the executive board of AMI Kids. We meet annually, semi-annually for the entire AMI Kids structure. And I'm very pleased to be here. I think Shannon Baker, our executive director, is trying to get on. So he just texted me. So I just want to make sure he gets here. So thank you.
Morning, everybody. My name is Mikkel Scott. I serve as the recently elected vice chair of AMI Kids. I actually joined AMI Kids upon returning to Tallahassee last year in, I want to say, August of 2019, and have since been involved with a lot of mentorship and incorporating new programming for the students and clients that we serve.
Good morning. This is Samantha Vance. I am happy to be here today, the board chair of AMI Kids Tallahassee, and been involved for the last 2 years.
Hey guys, I'm Maria Gamina. I am the grant writer for AMI Kids. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to be here this morning, and hopefully Shannon will be joining us as well. He is our executive director.
He is texting me saying that it can't be reached. I don't know if we should try to have him. He got the same invite we all did, right?
I'm working on it. I'll send a reminder once it's at the top of the inbox. Give me just a second though, so that way I can get that out, but you can continue on.
All right. Thank you. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we want to start by asking you, how has COVID-19 impacted your programs in terms of development, implementation, delivery to your clients, and your budget?
Participant has joined the meeting.
Good afternoon.
Hey, is this Shannon Baker?
Yes, this is Shannon. I tried to get on to my it could continue to redirect me on my, I had to end up getting up on my phone because it wouldn't do it on the computer for whatever reason.
You're in on the meeting. I just sent a re-invite if you want to try it that way, but you're in on the room, so they're presenting.
Okay, 10-4.
Hi, Shannon. My name's Marilyn. I'm the team leader, and I just asked your team to share with us how COVID-19 has impacted your program in terms of development, implementation, delivery to clients, and your budget.
At this point, because we've been in a partnership with the Leon County School Board, it has impacted us as similar to how it has impacted any school. However, we've had to get a little bit creative as using a lot of the Zoom technology as far as, phone calls and points of contact through, video chats, as well as curfew calls and things like that. So it has impacted us just like it was impacted anybody, but it has allowed us to get creative in our touch points with kids to ensure that they are maintaining healthy behaviors and making healthy decisions as well.
All right, thank you. And at this time, I'm going to open it up to my team for questions.
Okay.
I have a question. On your application, you guys indicate that your cost per client averages a little over $9,000 per client. Can you elaborate a little bit more regarding that?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
On your application, you indicate that your cost per client averages a little over $9,000 per client. I was hoping that you could elaborate a little bit more regarding that, why the number is so high.
Well, in our service delivery model, some of the intervention services that we provide, not only with the intervention in behavioral therapy, as well as mental health, as well as making sure that we provide not only the services, but have the platform of providing those services to not only the kids as well as the parents that are involved with that particular kid, ensuring that resources are available for them.
I have a question to follow up on that. I have the same sentiment, but I'm looking at, I know that you provide a vital service, but is, according to the application, I think you have 2 staff members. And if that's true, is that enough to really handle your caseload? Maybe that's where we're having the cost differential. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to flush it out a little bit.
I think it was more so as how it was set up initially with the initial application is a current pilot program that we were actually running in service with the Leon County School District, but we would need to be able to bring on additional team members in order to provide that service in a different setting and to provide more a different level of service as well.
How much of that is actually covered by the client themselves? Is there like a set rate that the participant has to pay? And if so, how is that set up? Financial needs, or is that just a set amount?
No, the clients are not responsible for paying any of the assessment fees or whatnot. That will be provided with by the program itself. And so what we were looking for is to be able to provide, to be able to, with a potential with this grant, to be able to get some supplemental resources to be able to expand that platform even more.
And this is not part of what you're collecting for FTE from the state, correct? This is separate with that.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. Yes, ma'am.
That's where the other personnel from you all are, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I was wondering, at this present time, are y'all serving any clients?
Say it again. I'm sorry. Say that again. I didn't hear you.
I was wondering, at this present time, are y'all serving any clients?
Oh, we're not serving any clients as of now. That is just as of June 30th, where we were, in contract with Leon County Schools, and so we were providing those services up until the service delivery model was modified, and so those services will kick back in as of the upcoming school year.
So it should kick back in on the upcoming of this school year in August, if they resume,
Right.
if Leon County decide they're gonna open school.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have a question regarding your proposed fiscal year budget. Under expenses, you guys indicate the compensation and benefits at a little over $175,000, but you've also said that you only have 2 staff members for this particular program. but it looks like your expenses for this program are lumped in with the agency total. Is that correct? I mean,
Is Maria on? Hello.
Is it Maria's not on? I'm thinking
I
it's
am on. Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're good.
She's muted.
Oh, hold on. Let me unmute you. You just mute. There you go. There you go.
There we go. Now you got me.
Yep, you're good to go.
So it is included. This program is also included in that total. So that would add to the number of staff.
Which those additional funds are being drawn from the.
Your expenses, the agency total, and then this particular program, it looks like they're one and the same, that there is no separation under your proposed fiscal year budget. The agency total and this program are the exact same numbers.
Correct. So the program that we're asking for funding for is the services that we provide.
Okay, so salaries for your 2 staff members for this particular program equal 175,474.
That represents the additional staff person that would be hired under this proposal, under this grant. So that would be 2.5 staff members.
At 175,474 annually.
With benefits, yes.
Okay.
But is that all of, because I'm assuming that it is because it's all the staff members that you're drawing the FTE from paying for too, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because it is a little bit in here to me. I know because I work in schools and understand that. It seems a little bit,
Ryan, just a reminder, please mute yourselves when you're not speaking. That's why you're using up a lot of your time because you're having a repeat question. So please do that. Ryan, can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, no, I had said it, Pat. I said it was confusing in here because I don't see the totals seeing eye to eye personally. I think that's where Crystal, you were trying to say too. We're not seeing those totals because I know you have all of your AMI Kids staff and then you have these 2 people for the program, but your overall staff total, the rest of that is coming from FTE.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean, other than those are the staff that are reflected in that number. All of the expenses of the program are reflected in that number.
Okay, so just to totally confirm, so it's 2.5 FTEs for the 175,474. Okay.
I have a question. If you had any budget savings because you had to end your programs earlier this year due to schools being closed or having to deliver them in any way, a different way, and can some of that be carried over to the next school year?
Shannon, I believe we kept providing services, right?
That question, that would be a yes. And a little less than, maybe 15,000 was definitely left over that we budgeted, that we didn't have to accrue any of those funds because of the COVID. That definitely could be moved forward as well. Yes.
So also another question on this this proposed budget sheet. So for the whole AMI program as a whole, your annual agency total for the bonding and liability insurance is at $55,738. Of that portion, what of that would be applicable to this particular program? Because I'm assuming you guys have more than just the one program. I think this expense sheet is just, I think it's just a little confusing. So does this 55,738 represent the bonding and liability insurance for the entire agency, or is that just for this one program?
The entire agency. So those are one and the same.
That would just be for the one program, satellite program.
I have a question regarding the awards and grants that are in your budget worksheet or funding justification. Can you tell me like what kind of awards and grants you're going to be giving? Because I see $136 per student for a suit and tie upon graduation. And then also achievement incentives of $6,800. So what do the incentives look like, and sort of what is their role in your program?
Well, our program, the uniqueness about AMI Kids is that we create a culture of acceptance and really trying to create an atmosphere of what kids can do versus what individuals can't do. And so what we try to do is all of those things that are worthy of recognition, we try to honor kids with different events. And so a perfect example, we have what we have called a bid store, to where the kids' behaviors are monitored throughout the day and on a point card sheet. And those characteristics are developed from in speaking with employers around the state of Florida and around the country of different characteristics that they're looking for in individuals that they're looking to hire. And so what we try to do is grade them on it. And so when we see those leadership skills and the way that they are initiative and things that they're using throughout the day, we try to capture that by rewarding them. And then they have those opportunities to be able to use those big bucks throughout the week in the store and purchase things like deodorant, shampoo, combs, brushes, perfumes, colognes, snacks, and things like that. And so that's one that's an ongoing. And then also we try to capture, once a month to where we have like an auction to where kids that are able to get enough points from their being able to, and this is outside of the points for those characteristics, those things, but let's say individuals are their targeted goals and things that we come in when we do that assessment on behavioral outcomes that we're looking for. So we want to see certain things. And so when the kid actually shows those things, we then qualify those points. And so they are able to get targeted points. And when they get to use those points as well in an auction. And so they can win things like boom boxes. We've gotten Beats by Dre headphones and things like that. And so to be able to do that. And then kids that move up in certain ranks, that's where we want to be able to purchase them a nice business suit and ties and shirts and things like that, where they feel really good about themselves as they move into the community to try to expand their platform as a student.
We're down to 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I just have a follow-up question on those, because those are, very expensive reinforcers. How were they identified in terms of reinforcing the behavior that you are looking for? Like, was there a survey of students, or was there some other model that you grabbed these ideas of these reinforcers from in terms of
Well, our personal growth model has been recognized as a promising practice by Department of Juvenile Justice. And so just over the years in developing processes and things like that is how we've actually accumulated and be able to put those things together. Now, there are certain schools and satellite programs that may not, their budget may not look as, as identical to another school or program. So that just kind of varies from program to program based on the resources that they're able to be able to bring in. I just believe that the more we can celebrate achievement, we're in a war with good versus bad. And so if we can celebrate the good, then I believe we have a chance with stomping out the bad.
I am so sorry, I'm an insurance person, so I'm just going to go back quickly to your bonding and liability. Can you let me know how many locations, because according to your COI, it lists that it covers all the AMI affiliated locations. How many are included on that?
Maria, can you help me with that one, please?
I can answer that, Shannon. So AMI Kids serves 44 programs across the Southeast. So that may be what that's referring to. But as far as those costs, those are just specific to AMI Kids Tallahassee. And again, that budget is reflecting the entire agency budget. That is what it's showing.
We have about 3 minutes left if anyone has any additional questions.
I have a question. I was wondering, with 2 staff members, you're trying to add a part-time staff member. Are y'all reaching out to the students at this present time since all of this chaos been going on in the nation and the community? What are y'all doing to influence to build the self-esteem of the students if they're not there?
Well, that is, while we were under contract with the Leon County Schools, that actually goes up into June 30th. Yes, ma'am. Myself as well as my other team member and a volunteer that we have are constantly reaching out to kids now, because once you bond with a kid and you become a family member of that kid, so regardless of whether you're required to do it or not, whether you're required to do it or not, you continue to motivate and encourage that kid by phone calls, et cetera. And so, yes, we're continuing to do that as we speak.
Has left the meeting.
Kids are not currently a client of ours, so to speak, because of our partnership with Leon County Schools.
I have a question regarding your social return on investment, and you cited a 2014 paper. Do you have anything more recent in terms of the economic burden that communities face when kids drop out?
Well, with Leon County Schools, I think I heard your question that you were asking about the 2014 paper.
Can I be unmuted, please? Can you guys hear me? Yeah, let me speak to that one. I do have 3 other sources that are more recent than 2014. I'm happy to provide you with those links, but I can just give you a quick summary of what those are. In a 2016 report.
I'm so sorry, but we are out of time.
Okay. Would you like me to pass those links along so that you can see the sources that I'm referring to?
If possible.
Okay. I will send that to you.
Thank you guys so much.
We are allowing any agency to give us their most updated audit. Okay, that's just a given. But when you talk about allowing an agency to submit you additional narrative information that could impact your decision making, and we're not allowing anyone else to do that, that's when you start crossing that line about what's fair, what's not. So I'm not concerned about you looking at it. And quite frankly, you probably can't even utilize any of the information in your decision-making process because it would be unfair to everyone else. Everybody had equal amount of time to do their analysis. The instructions in the application were very clear. It asks that you give the most up-to-date needs analysis data. And it allowed you to even embed documents and information that you could download within the application itself. So everybody was treated the same way. my 2 cents.
Honestly, Pat, it doesn't do anything to really benefit your case.
Pat, you're on mute.
Virginia, are the Boys Towns representatives in the lobby right now?
No, there's nobody in the lobby. The room is unlocked, so when people come in, they just automatically flow in the conference room.
Okay, so we'll just wait.
Pat, is the name still MIA?
What did you say, Crystal?
I was asking about Anita.
I don't see Anita. Oh, Anita. Crystal would like to speak to you.
It's okay, I'll get her after.
See her icon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys. I just want to remind everybody as we get started, Marie, we're getting ready to get started. And want to remind everybody to mute yourselves when you're not speaking and then unmute yourselves when you are. And that would include Boys Towns, if you could do it as well. That way we don't have so much feedback and we don't have to repeat ourselves over and over again, which will take away valuable time that you really do need. With that, I will turn it over to Madam Chairperson, Dr. McGee.
Hello, welcome back from lunch and welcome everyone. We're going to start with introductions. I'll introduce myself and then the team will introduce themselves individually and then we'll turn it over to our timekeeper. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University and I've been a member of the CHSP review team for 5 years. Yubi?
My name is Yubi Brantley. I work with the State of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Marie?
Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. I work for Whole Child Leon, and I've been with CHP for 2 or 3 years. I'm also a Southside resident.
All right, Ryan?
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows, and I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I have been on the CHP grant process for 3 years.
James?
Good afternoon, James Maduro Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I've been with the group for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Renee?
Hi, I'm Renee Ganson. I work with Leon County Schools and I'm a community advocate and I've been with CHP. This is the 6th year.
All right, and Crystal?
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency. I will also be your timekeeper today. We will have 20 minutes for your questions and answers. We're going to allow you guys to do a brief introduction. If you would, just give us your names and your role within the organization, and then we will turn it over to Dr. McGee to address the first portion of the question and answers.
Thank you, Crystal. Matthew?
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Jarvis. I'm the finance officer here at Boys Town, North Florida.
Hi, I'm Tria Francis. I'm the Director of Peer Coordination. Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Harris. I'm the Director of Development here at Boys Town.
Hello, I'm Marcus Lampkin. I'm the Executive Director here at Boys Town.
I am Bethany Lacey. I'm the Senior Director of Program Operations.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And we're going to start off today's Q&A by asking you how COVID-19 has impacted your programs in terms of development, implementation, delivery of services to your clients, and your budget. And if you could keep your response to 5 minutes or less, that would be great.
Okay, we're gonna do this in two parts, but overall, like everybody, COVID has affected us tremendously with our ability to do our normal operations. Of course, we had to adapt, and when we moved to virtual, by putting in some remote guidelines, type of responsibilities in order to continue to offer that service to our families. I'm gonna let Tria talk in a little bit, but that's what's challenging in itself to kind of continue with the normal type of service delivery, but we were able to kind of maintain some consistency there, but we were limited in our ability to do so. So, Tria, you want to elaborate a little bit more?
So in terms of our service delivery during COVID, we really had to make a lot of adjustments to, prior to COVID, we would have seen families in their home face-to-face. Obviously, as an agency, we have policies that we're not interacting with our families face-to-face at this time. So we've moved towards virtual provision of services to our families. And that has been successful for those families that have the mode to complete that. However, because of the population that we're serving, not all of our families are able to receive services virtually. So we've then provided services over the phone. And we've really tried to stay engaged with our families as much as possible using those two modalities of virtual and telephone contact with them. So we've really been impacted significantly in terms of being able to engage with our clients in their home as well as in the community, being able to attend appointments with them since most agencies were not offering in-person visits. That's reduced our ability to kind of monitor those services in the community. But we've made adjustments and we think that we're able to meet our families' needs as much as we can, given the limitations on face-to-face visits.
And for development too, our inability to get out and do the normal type of fundraising activities to help support these efforts has been limited. So we didn't have the ability to do the follow-up that we need to do in the community to kind of get those additional supports to help support our efforts. But we were able to maintain staff throughout this time financially. We were impacted in other areas, but we had to make other provisions in order to continue to make these services work.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my team for questions. Go ahead, Yubi.
Okay. Yes, in your mind, what do your programs bring to the Promise Zone that any other programs asking for funding do not?
So one of the things primarily that our services provide is that one-on-one interaction with families and the advocacy. So we have a consultant who works directly with the identified child, and we attend meetings with that family. We are very engaged in what's going on from all aspects, including what's happening mental health-wise with the child, as well as in terms of any other needs that the family has in terms of food shortages. That we're very engaged with the family, and we're also teaching them empowerment skills so that once we're no longer in the picture, that the family has the skills to be able to advocate for their child's needs. Another advantage in terms of our services is that our services are offered 24/7. So just because our agency may close at 5:30, that consultant is still available to that family. And that if there is a crisis or a need, that family knows that they can reach out to that consultant for assistance.
Thank you.
I have a question in terms of dollars that may have been saved due to your limited ability to service your clients because of COVID? Have you seen any cost savings or not expended parts of your budget because you weren't able to provide those face-to-face in-home services? And will that be carried over to your budget for next year?
Yes, this is Matt Jarvis, the finance officer. Probably the only place that we're really seeing it, the consultants have been consistently working their 40 hours a week and, providing the service in spite of the change in how we, deliver the service. One of the parts that we have budgeted in the annual budget for the program is the mileage. So, mileage to and from the office when they're going out to make visits. That's probably the only place where we've seen some savings. Maybe a little bit of, excuse me, in terms of overtime, because it's a little more hectic when they're doing the face-to-faces. But it's a nonprofit. We don't typically carry over. We always kind of operate at a loss. So any money that's saved is typically, it's found, there's places where we can redistribute it within the program. That might mean the ability to buy groceries or something for the families. Would probably be more of a move as opposed to a carry forward. We typically do not carry money forward. So that would probably the only places we've seen it is mostly mileage and just a little bit in overtime.
And even doing this for, even if we wouldn't have had this disruption with COVID and we would continue with the normal operation, we will still see a loss in response in respect to the monies we are being awarded, because the awarded money that we're getting for these services doesn't fully support the position and all the services that we're actually doing in that community. We offset those expenses anyway, pre-COVID and post-COVID with development fundraising.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at your fundraising efforts overall for the agency and seeing in your proposed fiscal budget, you have approximately a little over 500,000 that it looks like you're anticipating in fundraising revenue with an overall revenue of 5.2, but I don't see any of that flowing over to this particular program. Do you guys not do any fundraising or anything like that for this program?
Yes, we absolutely do fundraising for this program as well as are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we couldn't see you. The computer wasn't seeing you. But we do fundraising for all of our services through our fundraising efforts. What we do capture is, like I said before, in order to support this program and its ongoing ability to provide the services, we need these fundraising supports in order to do that.
And I would, I'd add to that as well. There's several programs here at Boys Town. Each of those programs operate at a loss. So the development is, the function of development is to fill those gaps across all those programs, CCS being included in this particular, with Promise Zone. So the COVID did impact our major fundraising event that we have for this year. So we are going to necessarily see a drop off in the 2020 year. We know this for sure, and we don't know exactly what the future will hold, but that $500,000 that you see budgeted is meant to, service the whole entire site and the various programs, CCS, being a big one of those.
The deficit that we already operate on.
Right.
So to kind of piggyback off Crystal's question, then what, because you couldn't do the Boys Town Gala, what are the other ways you're supplementing that income too for you all?
Well, applying for the Promise Zone grant would be the first thing. We're having to be creative this year, really, to look around and see there is, some supports coming in from the government, but it's definitely, we've had to be agile and think about outside the box. The efforts that we do on a regular basis, they mostly fix the problem. They mostly address the problem, but this year is going to be kind of unique. And this is a 2-year ask. So in the future, we expect us to kind of get back on cycle. We anticipate that. So we would go back into our normal fundraising kind of processes. But this was something that we had for the last 2 years, something that we relied on. So, it is integral. I mean, all these things are important. And the small blocks, still can build up the support that we need for the programs at the site.
And I can just take a little bit of that too. I mean, spring typically is, like you say, the gala is under our 18th year. That's one of our major fundraisers. We had just begun to receive sponsorships and do things. And then, of course, had to let that go. So, that was, while we did get some revenue from that, it wasn't nearly at what we would have generated had we been able to hold the gala. We also have a couple other little smaller third-party events that happened during that time that didn't happen this year. So we tried to do a day of giving that would have been the gala day. We generated a very, very, it was very close to when COVID was there. It went right there in April. So, I mean, all that said, definitely had a big impact because of that. But we are trying to, look at other avenues. We're looking at other grant opportunities. We got the Blueprint money, but that's $2,500. So that's, really a drop in the bucket. But we are looking at other areas in which to, receive grant funding and corporate funding. We do have a couple of things scheduled for the end of the year. So at this point, we're still, hoping to move forward with those, but it's just going to kind of be one of those wait and see like everybody else is doing, whether that will actually occur. So.
Good afternoon again. You talked about, well, we know that family engagement is such a crucial part of your program. So since you're going to virtual or have to use a hodgepodge of both, how do you think you could be effective now meeting your goals and objectives? Because I assume, and let me don't assume, but tell me how, let's say if you want to do 80% of this or 90% of something, how are you gonna make sure that this program is successful now that such a major component of what you're trying to do is gonna be kind of like, for lack of a better word, taken away from you? How can you be successful for the upcoming fiscal year with that being the case?
So it's definitely a challenge to be able to engage with our families when we aren't able to do that face to face. But I think one of the things that we try to remain steadfast and consistent with our families. So we, in terms of the phone call, that's the modality that we're utilizing with our families, that we're calling them more frequently than we would have pre-COVID. And then for those families that have the ability to meet with us virtually, that we're increasing that interaction as well. We've also tried to be as creative as possible for those appointments that are being held virtually. We've tried to piggyback on those and join in where we normally would have been face-to-face. We're a part of a WebEx call for, let's say, med management. So that we're able to still offer some advocacy for that child, and we're still able to interact with the family. So definitely increasing our interaction with them, but also making sure that we're just stepping back from our program model in a little bit and looking at whatever the family's needs are. So we've seen a lot of families that have lost employment, who have shortages in terms of food or insecurity. So we've tried to make sure that we're connecting them to resources to help in those instances, just so that we're able to meet that family's needs. So we've maintained those consistencies through increased interactions with our families. We've also tried to be creative in terms of just letting them know that we're there. We've held 4 car caravans, which we were able to offer social distancing from our families. They were able to see us. It was a fun, activity. We handed out candy. We were engaged with the families to let them know we're still here. We're still working on the service plans. We've just had to make adjustments in our efforts with our families.
You mentioned maybe going forward. We anticipate when we start to move back into the additional phases that we could resume with our normal operations. So what we're doing to prepare for that is we're asking for and recruiting type of PPE that we can give our staff, and then also supply those to those families that need service. So.
Okay, I just want to let everybody know we have 5 minutes left, and I do have a quick question. Your ask is this year is to add an FTE specifically for the Promise Zone area. Do you currently have any staff members that are dedicated to that area, or is that specifically for this?
We actually 2 years ago when we made this request, it was identical to this one. It was and we were only awarded 50% of what we asked for, but we did utilize that funding to support the consultant who was committed to filling out to meeting the requirements of the service model that we presented for the Promise Zone money. So this money would, this ask would essentially mirror that one from 2 years ago, and that's what we've done for the last 2 years.
And it's to support that one consultant that's dedicated to that area.
Yeah, answer the question.
How are you going to reach the kids that you have not been able to reach? What are you going to do future to touch the ones that you already have, but you're not making contact with?
We try to link up other providers who are offering services to those families to see if they are maintaining contact with families. And if they, in some cases they are, so they're maintaining services, so we're able to get updates that way. We're also still sending through snail mail communication with families. We're trying to use all of the avenues that we have available, texting, calling, our car caravans, to be able to remain in contact with our families that we're providing services to during this time.
And for those families that we haven't had a chance to service yet, so when the normal school operations start operating back, with a primary referral source for us in that area, we hope to get those type of responses so we can start meeting some additional kids through that provision.
I have a question. Is there any type of teleservice model that is applicable to organizations such as yourself that you could look into?
We're currently offering telehealth services, as I mentioned earlier, virtually. We're assessing for safety of the child and the family, and then monitoring services directly with the family. So we're currently using telehealth for those families that have the ability to monitor services with our youth.
So would you continue that going forward, even when you can see, because of the savings in terms of mileage and overtime and things like that? Would you consider continuing to implement that?
When it is safe for us to return to face-to-face contact with our family, that is the model that we'll utilize. We are only using telehealth because at this point, that for everyone's safety of the family as well as staff, we've moved towards telehealth. But we find our engagement increases when we're face-to-face with families. And so that's the modality that we would like to continue when it is safe to return to that.
I have a question. I was wondering with families in the community that with all the different challenges that's going on right now with the racism, with murders, with the police brutality, how are y'all dealing with children in those areas and in those different sectors, just like the Bond community where they had the murders over there, the police shootings and over near Saxon Street and just nationwide? I mean, how are y'all working with children, any families that had been affected, children just questioning?
We certainly have clients that we serve in that area, in Holton Street, in that community. We don't want to be blind to what is occurring in our community, so we're definitely offering our families resources and supports, and so that's why that frequency has increased also, because the world around us and in our community is changing daily. And so in order to meet those needs and to identify any changing needs that a child might have and get them connected to services, we are engaging with those families.
I am so sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
I am ready. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to start with a brief introduction of our team members, and then I'll turn it over to the timekeeper, and she'll give you the instructions for today. My name's Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been a member of the CHSP review team for 5 years. Renee? You're muted, Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson. I've worked with Leon County Schools. I'm also a community advocate, and I've been with CHP for 6 years.
Thank you, James. You're muted, James. Now we can.
Okay. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, James Maduro Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I've been with the group for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Ryan?
Good morning. I'm Ryan Meadows, and I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I have been with the group for 3 years.
Thank you. Marie?
Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. I work for Whole Child Leon. I've been with CHHP for 2 or 3 years, and also I'm a Southside resident.
Thank you. Yubi?
Good afternoon. I'm Yubi Brantley. I work with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Thank you. Crystal?
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier, and I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency. I will also be your timekeeper today. We're going to allow you guys a brief introduction. If you will just introduce yourselves and let us know your role within the organization. We will then have 20 minutes to go over questions and answers. The first question we'll go over is how COVID has impacted your ability to get your services out there. And if you guys want to go ahead and start with your introductions.
Good afternoon. I'm Sika Rose Green, and I am the Regional Executive Director for Children's Home Society here in the Big Bend region, Tallahassee area. I've been with the organization for a little over a year. I have had the pleasure to serve on a CRT with the City of Tallahassee and Leon County for about 10 years and have stepped out of that now that I am working with one of our nonprofits. I will turn it over to Dina Snyder, who is my tag team teammate for this session that we have with you today. Dina?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dina Snyder. I have been with Children's Home Society now for 15 years. I am the Director of Program Operations. And unfortunately, I missed out on the training that I was scheduled for this year to be a member of the CRT, but I'm looking forward to getting back and hopefully trying out for that role next go around.
Thank you, Dina. So we will go ahead, or I will go ahead and speak a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted Children's Home Society of Florida. As you know, Children's Home Society of Florida is statewide, and we are separated into regions that cover 66 of the 67 counties in the state of Florida. We were very fortunate and continue to be fortunate that while we have 1,700 team members across the state, none of our programs have ceased operations during the time that the pandemic happened. So starting in March, all of our programs and team members went remote. Here in the Big Bend, we did have one program that was negatively impacted, and we have since pulled that program from application in the CHSP process, and that is our community counseling program, Family Connections. The reason it was significantly impacted is that that program was based on a lot of school-based referrals. We had MOUs with 3 Title I schools, with our community partnership schools, Sable Palm Elementary, with Head Start through CACAA, and with Treehouse, where there are children in foster care residing, and that program is operated by CCYS. While the program, the counseling program, went to telehealth, as did most of our programs, as you can imagine, when you're dealing with counseling, it can be challenging when you are doing that over a video system. And quite frankly, many of the caregivers and guardians were really more focused on getting their children through the distance learning piece and adjusting to that for the last 9 weeks versus getting them into any kind of counseling services. So we have made the decision to close that program. However, we are able to keep our sexual abuse treatment program, counseling program, up and running, and look forward to doing that in the coming year. In the Big Bend, we have 4 other programs. So the Community Partnership School, which remained 100% operational. We had our Child Protection Team and Child Advocacy Center, which remained 100% operational. We had our dependency program, which is foster care, adoptions, and independent living. It remained 100% operational. And the program that we are here today to speak with you about, the Early Steps program, which also remained 100% operational. Now, none of the programs were without their challenges. However, we were able to continue seeing clients, doing intakes, providing therapy and other services to children in the Early Steps program. And for that, we are very, very proud. However, like most nonprofits that were in human services, we did have a negative impact with the closure of one of our programs.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the team for questions. I'll start out. Sika, if you could share with us in this new environment and your ability to keep the Early Steps program running successfully, what were some of the things you did to do that in this current environment? Did you go to telehealth or? Okay.
So we were able to transition to telehealth rather quickly. Children's Home Society already had a pilot that the statewide office was going to roll out regarding telework, because as we know, there are some positions where team members can work better if they're working remotely. As the onset of COVID came and kind of hit us all out of the blue, our statewide office just bit the bullet and sent everybody home to do telework. Every team member received a Zoom account. We have a corporate account for Zoom. So everyone has a secure Zoom account, and we immediately went to holding all of our sessions via telehealth, that platform. So with the Early Steps program in particular, I'm going to let Dina tell you more about how our practitioners in that program were able to use telehealth to provide services.
Good afternoon. So one of the things that we did to ensure that we could continue to provide services to our families was we had to transition into a new screening tool. So the tool that we normally use has been the Battelle inventory tool, and that one is administered face-to-face. Clearly, with trying to adhere to social distancing and to maintain safety precautions for our team members, we had to access other means. So starting in April, we had our teams train on the DAISY-2, which is another tool that assesses your fine, gross motor, social emotional communication skills, so that we could at least continue to ensure that we had a process to determine eligibility for our families. We had our team trained, and within, I want to say by the second week of April, any of the appointments that we had to put on hold for the last 2 weeks of March, when we transitioned into remote work, we're able to get caught up and stay on track. And so now we've gone back to being able to do our evaluations how we had them set before, which is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We had our teams that offer services. We have a speech therapist that is a team member with our program. And we also have an infant toddler developmental specialist that is a team member with our program. Like Sika stated, they were able to get their Zoom accounts. And so they were able to resume weekly sessions with all of the clients that were receiving speech and early intervention services with us. So within that 2-week time frame, we were able to get a new tool, learn it, implement it, and continue to provide services to the families in our communities.
Were there any issues, or is it because other health providers provide telehealth services that a lot of families of your clients were already equipped to be able to participate this way?
A lot of our families were able to continue to participate in this manner. There's been some challenges, of course, as with everything else, because the providers that we contract with, so we actually have the 2 internal team members that provide services, but we also contract with over 80 providers that offer the occupational, physical, speech therapy, and early intervention services. And so they were allowed to also move forward with doing sessions through Zoom. And it took a little bit of working with the families because they were used to that face-to-face interaction. But once we got it situated, a lot of the families have actually welcomed it in the hectic schedules that they've had to do with regards to having little ones that have to be going through schooling at home. A lot of parents would only be able to do between the hours of 8 and 5 when they were working. Their schedule was opened a little bit more. So we've actually been able to have providers that offer the services on the weekend because it's through the Zoom process, and even in the evenings for some of the families that have actually gone back to work, because we have faced some of that. And we have some daycares that have opened. We have some families that returning to work have had their little ones to have to go back to daycare. So we have actually had providers that are going into the natural environment as well, same as before, of course, maintaining those safety precautions and utilizing the PPE just to ensure that we continue to provide services to families. But the families welcomed it. Again, it took those 2 weeks of trying to work through them, reassuring them that this was what we could do for now. And they've welcomed it at this point, and they've been able to continue to work with it.
I have a question regarding your long-term outcomes. It looks like previously you guys indicated that 90% of the children exiting the program prior to 3rd birthday will not require any special education or additional services when they're entering school. On this year's application, you've indicated that 100% of the children exiting the program will just be evaluated. So can you tell me what you guys have implemented that is going to address the long-term outcomes? Because it kind of looks like you guys just went in the opposite direction on this app.
One of the things that I will share with you is the Department of Health, which is who's our funder, has an entry and exit. So we are not able to assess children with 2 different screening tools. So a lot of the little ones that entered our program prior to the COVID pandemic outbreak were tested with the Battelle inventory. And then from that point on, several of the children moving forward thereafter have been tested with the DAISY-2 screening tool. So we're not able to compare and contrast which kids and how they're going to be successful at the end, utilizing 2 different means of testing. So right now, what we're trying to ensure is that every child that comes through our program is able to be assessed, be determined whether they are eligible or not, and be able to receive the services that they need. Right now, because of the circumstances that we're in, we are not doing exit evaluations because, again, those would have to be done face-to-face with the BDI screening tool. And the Department of Health has actually put on hold on those for right now because we don't know how long this social distance will have to continue. So until further notice, and at this point it's looking like it's going to be through the summer and into the fall, we don't know if we're going to be able to get those outcome measures that will give us a true reading of children, how they entered and how they progressed at the end. So right now our goal just to ensure that services are provided, that they're determined eligible, and that we do what we can to kind of break the gap in those milestones that are not being met.
If I may, we also applied for funding through the Team 1 CRT through CHSP, which is Children's Services. When we went through that process of question and answer, there were a few questions that that team had, and we were able to address those. Additionally, we discovered that we had some missing revenue in our budget. And so that's what prompted a lot of their questions, because it looked as if we were getting funded at $1 million less than what we actually were. So I was able to request to provide a new budget to that team. I do have that available for this team as well, and would be more than happy to upload that in the notes and the answers to their questions that they had that regarded that particular oversight in the budget. So if that is permissible, I will be more than happy to upload that. And then you can also see questions they answered and our responses to that. Pat may need to jump in and see.
You can upload the budget, but not the questions to the other team, because that would just out of fairness. And Dina, the question they're asking you, I don't know if you have your application, but I don't want you to have a disservice about not answering. But they were referring directly to the outcome data collection table, long-term outcome, because there are no numbers. There are dashes without any numbers in the document itself, in the application. Just want to make sure you understood the.
And I know our timing is, we've got about 5 minutes left, but I will try to pull up the application. I don't know if there will be other questions that are going to be asked, and I'll review that part. I know in the previous presentation, we were actually able to give additional clarifications to the questions asked for this particular program. I don't know if that'll be an option for us this time around, but I am looking the application up now so I can access the information that she's referencing.
It's specifically in section 1.6 of the program evaluation / participant outcomes. And it's under the long-term assessment. And I don't know if it'll help any, but it says during the grant year, we had a total of blank children exit the program. Of the blank children exiting, we conducted assessments with blank children to determine the need for ongoing services after the age of 3.
Yeah, that was an oversight. I thought we had filled all those numbers in because we do have those numbers. And I can't pull it up now because unfortunately my machine isn't strong enough to run this as well as the application.
I had a question about some of the fundraising activities in here. I noticed too, in terms of what you fundraise for, it showed as the fundraiser Treehouse fundraiser. I know that Treehouse is not underneath you all anymore, so I assume that's why it's zeroed out. Is that okay?
That is correct. We do not operate Treehouse anymore.
And then in terms of the budgetary overall year, just had a quick question, and you may have said this, I can't find it in the application, but there's a CPT program director and a CPS director. Are those the same, or just clarify that from my understanding?
No, those are different. Our CPT CAC director is Child Protection Team, Child Advocacy Center, and that is one director that resides and oversees that program. The CPS director is the Community Partnership School director, and she is housed at Sable Palm Elementary, our community partnership school. So they're two separate programs.
Going back to your expenses and your budgeting, can you guys let me know what the 260,000 miscellaneous other expenses is? It just listed as an indirect expense.
So for all of our programs for which we receive funding, we have a home office that supports all of our operational functions. So our accounting, human resources, legislative, quality management. And for each program that we have a funder, there is a 10% indirect cost that goes along with that. And it is specifically calculated on the amount of the funding. So in the case of Early Steps, our funding from DOH is about $2.2 million. And so if you take 10% of that, it's about 200,000 and some change. So it helps to support those functions at the home office that help us because now we don't have to do that locally.
Any additional questions, team members?
What about the bad debts and uncollectibles?
So the bad debts and uncollectibles are also, it spreads from across the region in different programs. So we do have Medicaid that we're able to bill. We try to rent out the building, and when we're not able to get someone in there, then that's revenue that we had included in the budget that goes to a bad debt. Again, that is all calculated through our home office. We have been in a situation where while we are stable, we are trying to ensure that the programs we run pay for themselves. A lot of times, as you know, with nonprofits, the more you do with less, the more your funders want you to do with less. And we are just not in a position where we can do that. So one of the ways that we're looking to address that is to only go into contracts that are actually covering the cost of doing the service. And then looking at how we are able to build revenue off of that so that our team members can have a living wage, be able to support their families, and be rewarded for good work and meeting metrics.
Is that also why, too, I noticed a shift in terms of some of the salaries, executive director and the lead program coordinator, those were reduced a little bit. It looks as though you shifted some of that money to being able to have some new positions too. Is that all correct?
Well, the only thing I can say about the executive director is that salary preceded me. And so when I came on board, of course, the salary was not of that of my predecessor, which made sense because my experience was a little different. That being said, we believe that the reason we are in business is because we have frontline workers that do the work. My job is to help with the motivation, inspiration, budgeting, and meeting metrics where they're the ones that actually do the work. So we're trying to shift the way that we compensate to allow for that and understand that while the administrative piece and running and all of that is important, there are still people who do the work and they should be rewarded properly for that.
We have about 2 minutes left. Does anyone have any additional questions?
I have one additional question. When you do experience a loss in terms of revenue or things like that, does the parent agency ever absorb a percentage of that, or does it 100% come back to you?
It's absorbed across the board. The parent agency absorbs that as well as the region. And normally that's done with, positions that are already vacant, they will not be filled. So we try to do that without affecting team members, unless it is really a situation where a program is just not able to function and needs to be closed down. For our Family Connections program, since you asked that question, we try to have those team members look at other positions in the region for which they qualify. And so they have that option, or they may decide that they want to do something else outside of the agency. It's never an easy decision. But
so sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time. I'd like to thank you all for your time today and all of the information you have provided us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and take care. Wish you well. Wish you both well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have one more, I think, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Epilepsy Association. You okay, Crystal? Crystal's a little frustrated. I know her very well. But, got to do what we got to do. I understand your frustration.
Lead with it, rock with it.
I felt a lot of it, and now I'm trying to okay. For my own health's sake, I'm like, okay, I got to learn to go with the wind. Sometimes I'll give my opinion, I get overruled, and I can't. do anything about it. So I just have to live with it. And I'm trying to make myself be okay with living with those things that I cannot change a little better. Cause I you know me, I take my work very seriously.
And Pat, we take our roles within this process very
I know you do. I know you do. I know, and that's what I'm identifying with, the fact that you do. And it's it can create this. I know. I understand. In fact, that's why you on this team, because you take your work so seriously. And you and quite frankly, you and Dr. McGee were like dynamite the last 2 years. I mean, you were like hot. I mean, you guys were just perfectly. You did such a great job. So you get to be punished for a second year, a second funding cycle. When you're great, that's what happens, right? We put you on with the most difficult team. There are two incredibly difficult teams this year. We had a third unexpectedly, but as you can imagine, basic needs and emergency services team, those were challenging, critical decisions. And so that team, we put the top two reviewers, and we also knew this team equally so, because you're dealing with poverty, etc. So we put our other two top on this team. But one thing I do know, regardless of you being frustrated, you are going to make sound, good decisions. You always do. And you've got a great team of people. I mean, you've got Marie, you've got Renee, you've got Yubi, you've got Ryan, who is really good with questions. And so you've got a top team.
Crystal's good with the finance questions too. I didn't tell you all, but I taught economics for 11 years. So I always go to those budgets and I'm like,
see, that's Ryan. Now I know. Now I know Ryan.
And after sitting on boards in town, I'm like, I want to know. I want to know where that money goes, because we got to be a good steward of these dollars. You know, it is super important.
That was my minor, was economics. So
interesting. The two of you think alike. Yeah.
And I like money, and I like to know where it all goes.
I think I was thinking some of your challenges. Anyway, we're ready to start now. I see we have Virginia. So Mandy is here, from Epilepsy are here. So we'll get ready to get started. But that's a great thing when you do volunteer work, that really makes a difference. And how can we not care about one another and about people in our community?
Epilepsy Agency has joined the meeting.
Okay. So
Hey.
I'm going to.
This is Mandy. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, Mandy. We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Crystal, again, just remind people to keep their answers succinct, to the point, so we can move on. Mandy, are you expecting anyone else?
There's two of us here, me and then our epilepsy advocate.
Okay. All right, then at exactly 2 o'clock, we'll get started. We're just going to give our members a minute in case they need to walk away for a second. So exactly
1:30.
1:30.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant 1:30. Why did I say 2? I've jumped up somewhere. So we'll start it. Well, actually, we have no time.
Would you guys mind if I just called in from my phone? I mean, I'll just do this through my phone so you can see me. Is that okay?
Yeah, whatever works for you, Mandy.
Okay, I'll call right back in. Okay,
Mandy, sounds good.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay. So we'll start when she re-enters the
Epilepsy
meeting.
Agency has left the meeting.
Crystal, you're giving me flashbacks to those demand curves and inverse relationships. and I'm trying to find out how can I get at least a C out of this class in microeconomics, macroeconomics, and I'm in business, and I'm like, man, this is gonna mess up my GPA. So
That was funny. I was a social work major, but it was mandatory that we had economics, and I loved economics. I aced every test I took. I loved it so much. I was shocked, but interesting.
Important class you'll ever have in high school.
I love, and actually, yeah, I loved every moment of it.
I took the path of least math resistance. So it was like, what is my degree path that does not require math? But then I got into the economic side and I was like, oh, this is my jam. So and then I just kind of went in that direction. And then all of a sudden I do insurance. So, I mean, it's still a whole risk management and risk analysis. So that's kind of my bread and butter.
Supply and demand curves, I'll never forget. Wow.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mandy, we still can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, now here you go. Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, Mandy, welcome. We're glad you could join us today.
Thank you. Kathy, who is our epilepsy advocate, is also here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to start with team introductions. My name's Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been a CRT reviewer for 5 years. Yubi, if you could introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Yubi Brantley. I work for the state of Florida with Department of Management Services, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows. I'm with Florida Virtual School, and I've been with CHSP for 3 years.
Hey, Ryan.
Marie.
Hi, my name is Marie Bryan. I'm with Whole Child Leon. I've been with CHP for 2 or 3 years. I'm a Southside resident.
Hi, Marie.
Hi.
Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson, work with Leon County Schools for 23 years, and I've been with CHP 6 years. I'm a community advocate.
Hi, great to see you.
James. James.
Good afternoon, James McGrail Jr., Grants Management Office, City of Tallahassee. I've been with the review team for 1 year, and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Hi, James.
Thank you. Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Agency. I will also be your timekeeper today. I have been on the CHSP review teams for 7 years now. What we're going to do is we'll have you do some basic introductions if you'll give us your name and your role within the agency. And then we will move on to the question and answers, which we have 20 minutes allotted for. And Dr. McGee will give you the information regarding that once the time does start.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here and for rising to the occasion of doing this virtual presentation. I just really appreciate it. I'm Mandy Bianchi. I'm the Executive Director of the Epilepsy Agency of the Big Bend. And here with me is our epilepsy advocate, Kathy. She works directly with our clients, and she has a lot of knowledge about what our clients need and what the community needs to be able to serve them.
Thank you, Mandy. And we're going to start. Our first question is going to be looking at the impact of COVID-19. What effect has it had on your program in terms of design, development, implementation, delivery to your clients, and if it's had a positive or negative impact on your budget? And if you could keep it to 5 minutes or less, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. One thing to point out is that one very positive thing is that our program keeps individuals with epilepsy stable, and that actually lessens the instance of people visiting the emergency room. when they have seizures. So we're really proud to say that with COVID, although we're not as highly affected in this area, we don't know what will happen in the future, but the individuals that we help who typically would go directly to the emergency room if they didn't have insurance, they will be continuously stable and have less seizures because they're in our program. And that just frees up the doctors and the nurses and the medical staff and the beds. So we really do consider that a benefit. At the beginning of COVID-19, we were working remotely for the most part, but as soon as we felt safe to come back to the office, we did. So we've been back for over 2 months now, and we're just being careful, but we are seeing clients now, but we did keep in touch by phone before. Actually, we've gotten some very, very generous support from a LEAN grant, from a supporter of ours. So it's actually not been as bad probably as we imagined. So we're really making the most of this situation that none of us have ever experienced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now I'll turn it over to the team for any questions they may have.
So I have a question. How are you guys planning on being able to get your information out, given the current situation with the schools and not being able to get out to the schools and that sort of thing?
Well, we're really lucky because there are so many options that we can use for virtual education. This would be a groundbreaking thing for us when things are better to be able to access individuals in the Promise Zone in person. This is something that we are not able to do right now given our staff situation and budget. So very hopefully we'll be able to do that. But in the meantime, there are lots of options for outreach. Is there anything you wanted to share?
Yeah, some of our ideas include partnering with community organizations. We know that Whole Child and Second Harvest has their Food on the Move bus. And so we can envision doing some education in partnership with them with that program, in partnership with some of the community centers. This area has a lot of people investing in it. And so we know that through partnerships, we'll be able to get this important health education directly to the people who need it most.
Well, may I share something as well? In our application, I didn't have the capacity to break down the zip codes, but as I mentioned in my application, we had just implemented a brand new case management software that has that feature. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to share the zip codes that we have the most prevalence of clients. And one thing to point out is that among the 62,000 residents in the Promise Zone, it's really important to remember that 1 in 26 people have epilepsy. So that's a lot of people who probably have not yet been identified or know that there are opportunities for health education and for assistance with medical care. And as far as the zip codes that we help, 32301, 6% of our population is in that zip code of our clients. 32303, 7%. 32304 is also 7%. 32305 is 4.5% of our clients. 32308 is 2%. 32309 is 1%. 32310 is 5%. And 32311 is 11%. And 32312 is 1%. So that just shows the makeup of our clients, which is something we weren't able to demonstrate by zip code before.
I have a question regarding the Seizure Safe program. What type of collaboration do you have with the schools, and do you anticipate a better long-term goal of having more than just 40% of them on board to continue that education?
Definitely. Seizure Safe Schools is actually through the Epilepsy Foundation of America. So it's a curriculum that was already developed, which was, is already a bonus in itself. And I have already collaborated with the Florida Epilepsy Foundation, who has the materials and has the insight on how this program works. And we have relationships with many schools. Basically, being Tallahassee residents, I'm a longtime Tallahassee resident. We just kind of go where we're needed. So we've, if a child has epilepsy or newly diagnosed case, their parents ask us to come in and educate the teachers and the staff and even the students. So at the moment, it's more of a as needed basis, but our objective is to reach as many schools as possible in the Promise Zone and in Leon County. And we definitely feel like we could attain more than 40%. We just really want the epilepsy education and the health education to be out there, because the more people that know about how we can help them with medical services, and the more people know what to do if someone's having a seizure, the more lives that will be saved.
I have a question. I know you was able to identify the zip code, but would it also identify the neighborhoods?
I don't have that capability right now, but I can ask the person who created our system to help me do that.
Mm-hmm. Because I know if you have the zip code and the knowledge of that, but not the zip code on where those neighborhoods are, that doesn't sound right. Because if you're going to identify a zip code, you should be able to tie it in some area in Tallahassee.
We can do that.
I'm sorry, just for a point of clarification, Promise Zone is based on census tracts, specific census tracts identified, not zip codes. Just want you guys to be aware of that.
I just wanted to point out that we have more technology to be able to dig deeper into where we can help and where we're already helping.
Awesome. So I actually do see that you guys do have some neighborhoods listed on your application. I know that you're utilizing the schools to reach the children in that area. What are you guys doing to, how are you canvassing the neighborhoods to get the awareness out?
Well, unfortunately, at this time, we don't have the staff capacity to canvass neighborhoods, and that's why we are hoping to have a dedicated individual who can be on the street and on the ground, reaching out into the community. And I know Kathy had some thoughts about that too, as how it can tie in health and wellness as well. I'm going to just turn it over to her for a moment.
Yeah, a big important part of epilepsy prevention and wellness is prevention. Since epilepsy is triggered by stress, head injury, addiction issues, all of those will be covered in our health education and that information. And what we would like to do, how we'd like to start out is partnering with community groups, including churches in the area, getting the information out through there, and then expanding into events or other programming that's out there. Because this is a wellness issue, we'd also like to partner with the area health education program, and maybe bring in even some more health education, because neurological health is really comprehensive, and we'd like to do all of those things by strengthening those partnerships, taking the time to get to know the neighborhoods, get to know the people, and finding out where the areas of wellness they need most are, and finding resources for them to access that.
Piggybacking on that sentiment, I was thinking about, say, Bond Health Community, places like that around the neighborhood that you can tap into. What's your relationship with stuff like that? Because I look at it as you have to tell the school But let's face it, neurological issues are looked upon negatively by society, and especially in poor neighborhoods. You know, you see somebody with an epileptic fit, it's like, what's wrong with him? And you stay away, even though you feel sorry for them. So that type of outreach, understanding in the community is vital. So my main thing is about, what do you do? I know you talked about the church and stuff like that, and everybody else go to the church, and that's always good. But for instance, the school, bond community, things that really touch and impact the neighborhood. To me, that would be key to get that information, because again, the stigma of mental illnesses is prevalent in communities of color. So to me, that's the goal, and that's where we really need to hone in on. So how are you addressing that?
Well, we actually already are partners, and maybe that's why I neglected to mention them, with Bond Neighborhood Medical Service, the health clinic over, I can't think of where it is, by the pool and by Bond Elementary. We're out there already to meet clients. Our clients have great transportation issues, so we're already in those areas in case management. This grant would allow us to go into those areas with health education. None of those clinics that exist have neurological access to neurologists. They use us to get that. Even when their clients have Medicaid, they have trouble accessing the neurologists. So we are the conduit for that. And I also think that since people with neurological issues also have a lot of other comorbidity issues, like addiction or head injury, head trauma, that have triggered their epilepsy, that well-rounded health education could also be through those clinics in those neighborhoods. And, you know, when what we see is a client struggles to already get to Bond or to the neighborhood health clinic. And so we don't want to make it even more of a struggle to get to us. So that's why we would like to have this dedicated person there at those clinics on clinic days so that they can access us. Because transportation is a huge issue for people who have neurological conditions because they can't drive.
Thanks for the clarification.
Can I say one more thing? What you're saying is so accurate. And one of our objectives is to help eliminate or reduce or lessen bullying. You said there's a stigma attached to epilepsy, and there definitely is. And we feel like the more people are educated, the more people realize that epilepsy is way more common than they realize. And even for people who might have epilepsy but might not want to share it, this will help alleviate some of those issues. And bullying is such a huge issue in itself, but children might feel more comfortable about epilepsy. They might be more willing to help their friends who have epilepsy. And one other thing to mention is that the prevalence of suicide in those who are experiencing uncontrolled epilepsy is 20% higher than the average person. So when we're able to help people get it under control and let them know that people are there for them, and then get their community educated, I think it's just a really, really great approach to manage a lot of different issues going on.
And that's a great point. I don't want to hog the argument, because I think a lot of times once you educate kids, they're smarter than we think. They'll stop looking at it as, you know, something funny and not good, and say, oh, I feel sorry for them, and maybe help them and be more supportive. So I think that's valid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mandy, I have a quick question, because you pointed to like some of the disparities related to communities such as the Promise Zone with access to care. Is telehealth one of those things that lends itself to epilepsy services?
Telehealth has been such a blessing during this time, because so many of our people that we help do not have transportation. And so the fact that they can still get treated and be seen and heard by their doctor is just revolutionary. And we are really hoping that it stays around. On top of that, our clients experience depression and anxiety, and having to take a bus to get to the doctors is stressful in itself. So just being able to connect with a healthcare professional has been so wonderful. And we really, really are so glad that our clients are utilizing that. And we just feel like it's been life-changing during this time. So that's a really great question.
Will you use it more going forward, even as you look to expand into the Promise Zone? Is that a tool to continue to use?
We can go, this is another topic for another day, but we really are working on getting Uber Health off the ground to provide rides to doctor's appointments if telehealth is not as comfortable for people. So we're really looking at a lot of ways to bring access to individuals. And telehealth, it's working. It's working. I have a lot of people have just embraced the virtual meetings, and they're going much better than people would have expected. So we really hope that our doctors will continue to do this for our clients.
We're down to 3.5 minutes.
So is that expert, that one FTE that you want to put in the field, is that person like serves as a liaison, or are they trained, or are they specialists of any kind?
I'm going to let Kathy answer that one because we've been discussing the ideal person.
We definitely, they would have a background in health or communication. A lot of the information that we're talking about, they definitely can access through our neurologists who we work with, and who are their staff. And so we feel like we'd really try to find the person who is a great communicator, and the health education, they definitely would receive training for that. We also, again, I know I keep emphasizing it, but some of their time would be used to build partnerships so that they could bring in a mental health counselor and have sessions about, wellness, or even, different practitioners, and bring those directly to the community, but be the liaison for that. So a little bit of both, I guess, is the right answer.
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing regarding that person, that staff member you're hoping to add. According to your application, it is a 0.5. So it's just a part-time person that you're looking to add for that position, not a full-time.
Yes, we already have 2 case managers who could handle the referrals and the other aspects. If this person finds people who actually need our direct help as far as case management and medical care. And so this person really would be dedicated to the education and outreach portion of that.
And do you have a candidate in mind for this position if you are awarded the CHSP funding, or is that something that you still have to look and find the right candidate, and that they may or may not come on board during this fiscal year?
We definitely have some folks in mind whom we've discussed this with. One includes an individual who has epilepsy, who isn't quite ready to go back to work full time, but has gained so much knowledge personally for herself and her daughter who has epilepsy. Who she knows the ins and outs, just a very sympathetic, knowledgeable person. So that's definitely somebody that we've talked about. If this happens, that they would be very interested. So we definitely thought that through before we submitted the application, because getting started as soon as possible would be ideal.
Okay, everyone, we're down to our last 20 seconds. So I'd like to thank you so much for participating and providing all the information to us today.
I just thank you all for volunteering and for dedicating your time. And I just appreciate you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a great day. Take care.
Okay, you guys finish your first day of site visits. You're the only team, you guys are the only team, by the way, that is a 3-day team. Just to make you feel better. So you have quite a few programs on this team. I want to proposition you guys for something. So I want to kind of look at, if you look at your second day, let me look at that schedule for the second day. On the second day, we're scheduled to end at exactly the same at 1:50. I wanted to ask you guys, are you willing, would you like, because I'm concerned after having done this, we've done some deliberations now that were basically the ones we've done so far. They saw agencies on the first day and they deliberated on the second day. It took us all day. So I'm thinking if we want to not add a fourth day, how about us lengthening the second day and we go to from 2 to, we end at 5 p.m. that day, and we could do a lot of the analysis that we need to do so we can get ahead of the curve. I think if we do that if we actually extend that second day and start deliberations after the last final review, which is 1:50, around 1:50, 2 o'clock that day, for next week, then we should be able, hopefully, to finish the whole deliberation process on the third day. How do you guys feel about that proposal? Because I am real concerned after having done this for a couple of teams now. And they had half the programs that you guys have.
So question.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying based on your experience that because we have more applications and you took the whole day with less applications, you think we're going to run over on the 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we will not have enough time. In fact, yes, absolutely. I did 4 deliberations, I think, last week. I'm running out of, you start running out of, when you're going so fast, you forget how many, but yeah, just from the experiences, and you guys have more programs, and you also have, I would say, harder choices to make on top of that. So what do you guys think about?
I love the idea, Pat. I love the idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we could probably get a bulk of the work done, and it's still fresh in our mind too.
Yeah, so we could start. So how can everybody?
Part of it anyway is going through all of that stuff and, adding in, our recommendations and all of that. I mean, that takes a long time.
Yes, it does. And it's a little bit more complicated it's definitely more complicated on the website, doing it by web right now. So we did finish the third day when we did it in person, if you remember, a couple years ago, but we have, I think, at least 3 or 4 more additional agencies who applied this year compared to 2 years ago. So you've got more agencies that applied to this team. And I think it took us until that evening, right? Late that evening, by the time we probably didn't finish.
Nita had to scramble for dinner.
Yeah, this is true.
Nita, she won't answer us.
I know it. I'm going to make sure she shows her face the second day so you can have your words with her. Crystal, you didn't eat anyway, except for salad and greens.
Oh, it's even worse now. We're plant-based.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's even more strict.
Well, we'll talk offline, but when you guys go back and start catching seafood again, put Pat on your, since you're total plant-based.
You just gotta let me know, because snapper season just opened up last weekend, so
I'm ready to accept your what you call it, your gifts to me at any time. Anyways, we laugh about it. I'm not a fisherman, but anyway, so is everyone okay about us lengthening that second day?
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay, sounds great. So I think you guys did an incredibly good job. You're asking very, very good detailed questions, and you will need every bit of this information and more when you try to make some good, sound decisions. And again, That's why I'm so grateful that Renee and Marie are here as well. Others, I mean, not to say that because you're, you know, some folks came from that same environment, you just had opportunities for education or whatever that allowed us to, you know, to overcome some of our obstacles in life, because many of us, we grew up with the same types of challenges that these communities have. But I'm going to say, obviously, that things are different now than they were before. Because even in my community, because I grew up in the inner city in South Florida, it's still, you have more of a cohesive community, you know,
Right.
and you had neighbors watching neighbors' kids, and there were protocols, expectations. You could even get reprimanded by someone else, and you had to be respectful. So you had a lot more protocols and safety niches in the community than we do now. You know, so no matter what we went through, we have to recognize that things change. I'm going to say the challenges have gotten even more greater in many, many ways.
I
As we
imagine
can see.
I was a Riley Elementary School graduate, so that was my elementary school, and I imagine things are very different, even now, than they were when I was there.
Exactly. Why I'm happy for Marie and Renee to be, because they're still living in the communities and they're working those communities, and they're still involved with the neighborhood association. So they're actually seeing firsthand what works and what doesn't work in their communities. Okay. So I think that's important as well. Any comments or last comments, Ms. Madam Chairperson? I know for a fact, one thing I want to make sure we emphasize is that you really will need to complete all of your assessments guides before you meet next week. You cannot wait until next week to do those assessments guides, because you will be hearing a whole new group of agencies and your memory will start bleeding together. So please, in the interim, complete your assessment guides, recognizing that when we do our assessment process, you may change some of your ratings. You turn those in after we finish the entire deliberation. So you'll probably turn those in the following day, electronically, hopefully. Even if you copy them and you still like to do writing, then you could do a PDF. I never thought I could go paperless, but man, I'm mastering this experience. But whatever, you can do whatever you need to do when you're demanded to do so, right? So try to, if you can, complete them electronically. It'll be easier for you to send it back electronically. Okay. Any concerns or any words of wisdom that anyone would like to share, particularly our team leaders?
Well, I would just thank everyone for their input today and say that I know this is difficult, given that we usually feed off the presentation to generate additional questions. So now we're just listening to what they are saying to see if there's some of our questions or whatever. So I just really appreciate your taking the time and coming up with some really good questions for our agencies.
Mine would just be, make sure you fill out your forms ahead of time, because that does take a long time and we need them for the rankings. And the more prepared we are for the deliberations, the quicker they will go.
And be clear, just a reminder, because folks have a right to, we have an appeals process built in the CHSP, which means that we will be scrutinized as far as, did we make fair, good, sound decisions, which I'm fine with, because we're used to it. The veterans who've been around, where everybody is used to being on the spotlight. I'm definitely used to it by now. So, and what I've always valued is that when I know I've done what's right, I'm ready to take whatever hit comes my way. I'm okay with it. I've had it for a long time. It's okay. And I don't mind people questioning, as long as I have some good feedback to give folks and say, this is why we made our decision. It's based on sound reasoning, and it's But most importantly, it's our job to work in the best interest of the community itself. And that's it. We are liable to the needs of the community, and we are not accountable to anyone outside. That is the end and the beginning of our responsibility, that we make sound decisions for people who are going to really need these services. And the difference with CHSP now, it feels more serious to me because of what's going on in our community, but also CHSP's decisions now are to affect the community for 2 years, not just 1 year. And so we got to really look at what we're doing and seeing what collection of, also, I think you also have this other responsibility, because it's the only citizen review team. We've got 10 funding categories. It's the only category that is so specialized to address some of the highest needs in the community. So we want it to be successful because ultimately we want the community to invest more money into this category and other categories that could make a difference in people's lives, real differences in people's lives. Yeah. With that, I hope you guys have a magnificent rest of this week. And I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate you, because just for you to say yes to, when you saw your assignments, that you're like, whoa. I heard there was a little comparison between the assignments on one team compared to this team. And it was quite a bit. It's an awesome responsibility. So thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
And I just want to
talking about you, Dr. McGee.
I know, because I knew who you were talking about.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I just want to say, as a rookie on the team, that I couldn't be more proud to be with quality team members like you. I'm learning so much in the process, and please bear with me as I go through the learning process. But you asked some great questions, very intelligent, and also my team members who actually live in the environment. You've been great to kind of give us perspectives, because I grew up in two housing, just a little quick background, I grew up in two housing projects, but that was over 40 years ago. And I was able to move up with my mom, and now I got 2 advanced degrees and all that, and that's good, but you can't forget where you come from. So I take this very seriously to make sure that some of the people who are less fortunate than me, but I was in their shoes 40 years ago, have an opportunity. So I want to thank y'all, and it's a pleasure serving with this group.
Let them know that the CHSP team should have an input on time.
Okay, I will make sure I do. I probably should have fought a little harder, but I'll make sure I do. You can only fight so many battles sometimes. Okay, take care.
You gotta pick them. All right.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.